So I feel as if I need to stop drinking coffee. It's one of the things that I think has just propelled me always to being just like super excited and like antsy and like there's just no relax. I found that I went on this like I don't know, cleanse, I guess, or just I just stopped
Hmm.
doing coffee for a long time.
Really?
Yeah, I just kind of completely cut it out of my diet, and I found that I was less like quick to just like ramp up with excitement and eagerness and all that leads to the dark side and leads to negativity and leads to being overly stressed. And
Yeah.
so I started jumping on like matcha and like a bunch of other just like stuff. Like I tried mud water a couple times.
Hmm.
It's an actual brand, it's not actual muddy water.
Hmm.
But and I just feel like I'm just like more chill. Today I had coffee and I noticed a huge difference because I haven't had it in so long. And
Uh,
I mean, that was like 10 o'clock and it's like 10 hours later. I'm still like wired. So
wow.
I don't know. I think my brain's just, when you get a little bit of it, it's like,
Well,
give me more. And I'm
it's
just,
funny. Yeah.
uh,
It's funny you say that because I'll tell you this much. I don't drink coffee. I've never drank. You know me. You've given me cups.
you don't
Try
like the taste of
this.
it. Of
I'm not as
course.
big the taste, but I do have like these doses of caffeine. I have an energy drink that you put in water, and in the mornings I use it.
Hmm.
That's kind of my boost in the mornings, and then I'll have one even if I need one during the evening or middle of the day. But you know what's funny is that on the back of the box, it doesn't tell you. It says it has caffeine, but it doesn't tell you how much it has. I finally went online, and some site tells you
It's
what how
enough
much.
to kill two yaks.
Dude, it has twice the caffeine of a Red Bull, and I'm like, whoa, like because we know Red Bulls
Red Bull's pretty
it
hardcore.
gets you pretty amped, and
Yeah.
it's twice that, and I'm like, holy crap,
It,
I've been drinking this
one
every
Red Bull
morning
is
for like two
equivalent to
years.
4 lines of cocaine. I just made that up. But
But
a yak serving of cocaine, if
a
that's
yak
really
serving of,
a yak.
and that's the thing.
Cocaine's. I mean, yaks do a lot of blow, but a lot of disco biscuits. The yak community, they're just like, I don't know where
Yeah.
I'm going with this. Again, I've been like
Uh,
this all day where I'm just kind of like zany. So this is gonna be that kind of episode where I'm zany and
ooh,
crazy and weird. So
man, you're
anyway,
gonna get wild, right? Okay,
I
okay,
guess so.
you
My
could.
bad. My pre apologies to everybody. So let's go ahead and tell them what they won for this episode of the Nissan Nerd Podcast. Sorry to go off on a tangent. Again, I'm on coffee today, guys. I will try to do my best not to be on the devil's elixir in the future. So
The,
we'll move
the
on.
yak blow. All right, I got you. I got you.
Yak blue. Yak. Uh,
All right, guys. Like Miles said, yes, welcome. This is the Nissan Nerd Podcast here for another episode for you guys. Thank you for being with us. On this episode, we're going to give you a history lesson about a Datsun 240Z, which actually set multiple speed records at the Bonneville Salt Flats back in the 70s. Also, we learned that a Nissan executive has said that Nissan would like to sell a cheap electric sports car. I know we've got a lot to talk about, to speculate on that one. And then later, of course, we highlight a few custom builds which have debuted recently at the SEMA convention, which just wrapped up in Las Vegas. So we'll go ahead and highlight those builds, though. This is the Nissan Nerd Podcast. Let's get into it.
oh man, we got to do another road event. It's been a hot minute since we've done a road thing, and our road trips are always so fun. And
They are.
I feel like 2023 wasn't the best for road trips. I don't know. I feel like we could have been better.
Uh,
So
yeah, I mean, we definitely need one or two. Last year we did a
you have
real
to buy.
nice one in
You have to
Branson.
impulsively buy something that you don't need. Like
Impulsive.
yeah, I need to get you to buy like a pulsar or something.
If
You know?
dude, a Pulsar, if I can find a GTIR, if I had the money saved
If
behind
I
it,
had
that
the
or
means,
honestly,
so trust.
if you have the means, honestly though, Slick Top 300. If I ever can get my hands on a cheap Slick Top
Don't even
300,
start.
I
The,
know, I know,
I
because
put a few in front of you, and
yeah,
you
and
you you turned
no,
them away,
no, no,
ladies. Not
no,
today,
no.
ladies. We got like like the Matrix. So one of these days we'll find you something cool. You need something weird in your life. You need something that you
Oh,
can't get parts for anymore. That's what you
I
need in your life.
I'm not sure if this one's gonna be hard to find though, but this sounds so crazy. When we were talking about that lemons entry idea,
Yeah.
for some reason a 90s era 200 SX
That's what's on my list. It's
it
the
spoke to
only
me.
thing that I would make a space for in the garage. I'm saving that one spot for something weird.
That's weird, though,
I
right? I
just
mean,
haven't found it yet.
they're
So
just so hard to find nowadays, and they go
they're
under
a
the
pain.
radar so badly.
We'll talk more
Yeah,
about it offline, but
later.
yes, I need to find you something weird to destroy your night's sleep in parts hunting. So, yeah.
Well, great. Look
But
forward to it. Yeah.
welcome to everybody to another episode of the Nissan Nerd Podcast. Obviously, my name is Miles. This is Mike, my co-host, as we always are doing this here for you. It's been a minute, man, since well, I lie. I saw you last weekend, and you made me work like a slave at your house.
2 weekends in a row,
Two
actually, man. If
weekends
you
in a
think
row,
about
you've
it,
worked me
two
like a
weekends
slave.
in a
Yeah,
row.
it's true. Come on,
Sorry,
it's okay.
sorry. Well,
Hey,
I'm
go ahead.
I'm glad you mentioned it because I did want to say thanks to you for that,
Hmm.
for all that we did, but also, and then for those who saw our promotion for the show this week, we used the whole Tool Time, Tim Allen, Al Borland type of for anybody who was a '90s kid or at least was around in the '90s, they know what this was about. But I said I did this specifically because you helped me out so much this last 2 weeks with my house. So it's an ongoing project. I've got lamps, ceiling fans, mini blinds,
Mini
a
blinds
bunch of
installed,
electrical outlets.
moving
Yeah,
stuff. Oh, what
a
else did
lot.
I do? Yeah,
And
that's it.
honestly, man, I really want to say thank you, man. You've pulled through so much,
Well,
and you
I had to
you
make your I
actually
had to make your living situation better for you, so you have no excuse not to work on your cars. So
that is true. I mean, you really pushed me. And the thing is, though, it wasn't until late Saturday that I realized why you were also pushing me. Because what'd you say? You're like, hey, I'm gonna push you through this because I want to get in the garage. We're gonna work on that 300.
yeah,
And so, of course, you are helping me with that too. I got some pictures of that. For
you're
those
so
who follow up,
close. It's like it's just there. All it is. This was the top of the hill that we needed to get over to do this. This was us last time. We scuffed, sanded this whole damn thing, and then we put it in a high build primer so we could
mhm,
knock it all down. And that's kind of where it left. We haven't knocked anything down. And
yeah,
then come Saturday, I'm like, all right, I did all this crazy stuff for you. We busted it out in record time. Let's get in the garage and let's work on this thing because we haven't touched it in months. So we got
yeah,
at it. Yeah. So we just got in there and started knocking everything down, blowing everything out.
oh
And
yeah.
yeah,
You
this
know,
is how we started our day.
yeah, we're scuffing an entire engine bay, like you said, that had this high build
It's,
primer. It was very
yeah.
grainy to the touch. We had to smooth out most areas, and then, of course, left a huge mess because it's all these pieces falling to the ground.
Sanding's
Uh,
never fun and never clean. So,
mhm. We got
but
into it. It literally got into the dark night. If you see the background, for those who see the pictures with us, we're getting into late at night. I have these real nice lamps
it's like
underneath the
3 hours
carport.
of prep. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and we tacked down and degreased, and then all of a sudden we started making clouds. For those who can see that, man, that's some paint clouds in the carport area as we are laying down actual paint. We've mentioned it here in the past on the show that
we did a budget
paint
build. I mean,
match.
that's
Yeah,
the thing. We were going from the original paint that was in your engine bay, and it was kind of scuffed, scratched. Brake fluid had fallen on it. It was like staining it, and that's unfortunate with silver. It's just one of those colors that just shows a lot of that detail, just like white and stuff.
yeah,
So, we had talked you into like, hey, let's do a budget engine bay job, and you're like, no, no. And I finally said, hey, you can do this. It's not going to delay us that much. Wink,
yeah.
wink. Anyway, we got to it to where we actually laid down some paint, and
Hmm.
I don't know, got any good photos of that.
We do. So yeah, actually at this point, I think we had just finished up the paint, and
Fogging.
you can see the foggy. That's just the remainder. But if you look at it honestly, though, man, I think we did a damn good job, dude.
I think we
Um,
did too. I mean, we laid it, and that's probably like 2 passes.
mhm.
I think it came out pretty good. We haven't even put clear on it, so the depth isn't in there. So we're going to go through it one
Yes.
more time, and lay down another paint layer, and then
Mhm.
You're usually not going to supposed to do this much time in between everything, but we had a plan. We were going to kind of do this, and then from there go back through again, tack it all down, let everything cure, and then we're going to lay down another layer, and then we'll
Yep.
come back through and follow clear. So we had a plan. I know it's space stuff out like that, but I think it came out pretty good
I
for doing it out of a 2K can, so it's not too bad. So
it, I'm really impressed by it too. I know. Again, thank you again
again,
for
budget
pulling through
bills.
with this.
I mean, maybe we got $200 in it, maybe. So that's not too
What
bad.
I what I really liked about it though, Miles, is that I believe on Monday you actually threw this out to social media on a personal post showing what we did, and of course we have a lot of Z fans and friends that are probably more versed in paint than I am or you are, and they actually came back with a lot of good advice. And
Yeah.
so honestly, I think that's really directed where we're going
Yeah,
forward.
Tyler Spriggs from time to time. He's actually an amazing painter. I'm okay. Like I'm okay for a budget build. I can lay paint. I've never really worked a lot with the aerosol stuff. I usually I'm gonna lay it all down with like a high volume gun. I've got a couple guns in the garage that I like. One fancy one, and then the rest of them are just all Harbor
Mhm.
Freight specials that do the job. But when I'm laying down stuff on an actual car and I want it to be good, like I'm going to shoot somebody's track car, it comes
Mhm.
out okay. It's not too bad. But this engine bay, I really wanted to work for you, and using a rattle can, I didn't have a choice. You definitely wanted to use the rattle can, and
I
you wanted to use that paint code matching,
the
which was actually really great service. I've
Yeah.
only used that like maybe twice in my life,
Hmm.
but I know that it actually comes out with good results as long as you get a good paint supplier, and we did.
And
And
we
I
did.
think it came out really good. It was a great paint match for what it is, and
Hmm.
like I said, we'll hit it again, and I think after that, it's going to be choice when the clear's all laid, and we'll tack it all, blow it out 4 or 5 times, tack it once or
Yep.
twice, and then we'll come at it. So
I'm really excited about it, man. I think looking forward to it, and
yeah, it
yeah,
looked good when
I
we're
think
all
we're
done.
looking pretty good. I did want to do one thing, Miles, is that I hate to call you out on it, but I just want to let you. I don't know what it really. What's the word? It really put thing in perspective. Something that happened this last week, which was Facebook shared that, of course, you recently shared a wedding anniversary. Um, 8 years, dude.
Yeah, with
Congratulations, dude.
my wife have married 8 years, but I've been spending so much time at your house. We are no longer going to be married for 8 years.
You've only
We're
known it for
pushing it as
2.
far as it's going to go. So
No, man.
it's back to the. I'm just kidding. Now,
Nah.
my amazing wife Anna, and then my beautiful daughter Pia, they put up with a lot of my antics, just like many other people on here who live the married life and also the car enthusiast world. So you can't do it alone. Sometimes it's always nice to know that you have support, and then of course friends too as well. If you're living that single life, I salute you as well, and kudos to you for just kind of doing that as well. But those that choose to kind of go with a companion, it definitely is. You got to make sure that they're super cool with it. Otherwise, it's a fight all the time. But
Yeah.
I'm lucky in that respect. This was actually the wedding.
Yeah.
This was the photo right before the actual the wedding. The
This is yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You
I
do
was
the
gonna say
honors.
the
It's your
irony
wedding.
about this is these are all Nissan people. Every single one of these is, and these are all like friends that I've met through the Z world, except for the curly haired guy. That's actually my wife's best friend, in the
Hmm.
red tie and to the left with the big curly fro.
Yep.
His name's Adam, and just through chance, he's actually a Nissan Altima guy of all things. Like, he's just a regular Altima guy,
He's got that
but
big Ultima energy. Is that what
he's
you're
just got
saying?
that big ultimate energy, man. But it's
That's
funny.
why he's
Every
hanging out with all
single
the
one of
Z
these people
guys.
here is a Nissan nerd. It's kind of
Yeah.
crazy. It just worked out like
Well, and that's what got me. This is how I remembered because this photo showed up in my memories on Facebook, and yeah, I think about this picture. Of course, there you are. I'm there on the right. Our buddy Ion's right in the middle here.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody here is a Z, somebody that I've met only because we share a common thread, which is Nissan and Z. And here it is. This is a life event. This is a wedding. You only get 2 or 3 in a lifetime, Miles, of these. So,
Yeah. And it's all
but
going to be the same
no,
guys. The same guys are going to be the exact same bachelor layout,
mhm,
probably. So it's just kind of funny. But
yeah. Well,
yeah,
and
it's
that's the thing.
crazy. Yeah, I could take the same picture for a lot of these guys who have gotten married to as well, and it
Mhm.
would pretty much be a damn near identical photo. I mean, we all just kind of have the same friends. So
Yep. And I don't know if it looks like this to you, Miles, but in mine, this picture may look a little grainy. You know what I mean?
it
I don't
probably
know.
is.
It is an 8-year-old photo, so like the megapics on the
Yeah,
camera weren't the best, so that's why.
it's all right. We did a good job. So
Again, congratulations, man! Happy anniversary to you and Mrs.
appreciate
Mrs. Miles Hall. You know what I mean? And
that. This is my song.
well, I just, you know what I mean. I just
Well, I
want to
appreciate
give.
you giving a shout out to the wife. But yeah, for all
Mhm.
those out there, a big shout out to the significant others that are holding it down while we're out there in the garage tinkering and chiseling away at whatever we think is important. So,
Yep. Well,
but
speaking of that, Miles, though, we do. You said shout outs. Do you
yeah,
want to give a shout outs for those of you that are with us online? We see you, and if you chat in the
yeah,
comments, we'll contribute. We got our boy Mr. Miriani here with AutoWorks, checking
mhm,
it out, giving
Tony.
us hey, we're here with you guys. So thank you for being with us.
Yeah, appreciate him for
Oh,
jumping on with us tonight. So, Brian Vella, thanks for jumping on.
thank you for being here,
Of
man.
course, he's going to jump on because we're going to mention and talk a little bit about him tonight. So,
Yeah.
Brian's jumping in. He's just waiting to hear his name. Of course, his massive accomplishment, which we'll talk about a little bit later here in the show. So, but
Yes.
yeah, thanks again for everybody for being on with us here live. Again, anything you'd like to tell us, just please post it in the comment sections below. We see you, and of course, we'll share some of those comments throughout the show. I do want to give. Let's go ahead and just kind of go into our compi. We started chatting a little bit at the beginning of this and just kind of shooting the breeze, but
Yeah.
let's get a little more caught up to stay on our timeline. But let's go ahead and jump into compi. Let's give a salute to those in the Nissan family whom we wish good health, and to those we've lost, may we be reminded of them often. Our normal compi is throw
All
them
right,
up.
guys, we see you. Yes. Join us if you've got it, guys. Kanpai.
All right. Now, Mike, you needed
Mm.
to add a few community notifications to the compi here. Some shout outs, right?
I do, I do. So, something that we've been doing the last couple episodes is giving a shout out to our friends that are fans of the show and friends that we've met along the way. This show is no exception. We're gonna go ahead and share a shout out, a happy birthday to our friend in Japan. Of course, we were talking about Tetsu Takakamo. He is, what would you say, Miles? An OG Nissan Z guy, owner and operator of Ultimate Z Garage, just north of Tokyo, Utsunomiya.
Yeah,
To be
I
exact.
mean, Tetsu's Old Testament when it comes to Z's. It doesn't really get much better than him. To me, he's kind of like the grandfather of the Z. He's basically Mad Mike in Japan for us. And now that Mr. K's gone, he's really our link to everything in Japan when we need to, when like Chris and everybody from the ZCCA are doing theirs. He's a really integral part. Plus, he is again, he's old school, so he lived that life, and he's lived that Nissan life for, I'm not going to age him in any way, but
Mhm.
and he's held down a very successful Z shop, Ultimate Z Garage in Japan. It doesn't get much better than Tetsu. I
Amazing guy. I love. Is he the one who came up with the whole no photo
Yeah,
thing?
yeah, that's
I,
it. It started with, I think, one of the Z Crazies tours, and it was in full effect by the time you and I started making our way to Japan to visit him. Along on the Z Crazies tour, we were lucky enough to be invited on individual trips.
mhm.
But yeah, and Tetsu is very integral in actually getting some of the Japanese cars, and of course the Japanese dignitaries to come over just about every year or every other year when they can. So yeah, I remember one year, and it was
Mhm.
crazy. I think it was like Long Beach Z convention. We actually had an opportunity to bring over a bunch of Z cars from Japan and bring them over on a boat shipped, and then we had them as part of the Z convention, and so it was like insane that they brought over their cars. That was a huge ordeal when that
Yeah,
happened when I was
and
there for
he
that. I think it
and
was
he
that.
has that 280ZX with the RB swap on it. He was
Dude, he has the most legendary
oh yeah.
280ZX, the wide body gold 280ZX. That is all Tetsu. And if you go to a shop in Japan, if you're ever lucky enough to, you just walk around there, and it's just tons of historical data. I mean, you can also,
Mhm.
I mean, it's a shop, so you can kind of say, "Hey, Tetsu, I need some right hand draw. I need some S30 JDM mirrors. You got any?" He goes, "Yeah, there's like 20 right there. Just grab." And I'm like, I mean, it's insane. Like, I don't know. It's just he blows me away. And then of course his knowledge. He's been modifying like S30 chassis and installing like S13 subframes, and which nobody was doing back then, or R32 subframes into S30s. I mean, he's just the man's a legend. So
Mm,
yeah, I
yeah,
can't say I can talk about him all day
of
long.
course. Yeah.
So, but again, I just want to give him a proper shout out, a big thank you to Tetsu for everything he does. He's kind of like my the unsung hero for the Z community. So,
Yes. So happy birthday to Tetsu. Also want to give a shout out. Happy birthday to our good friend Kevin Steffen. Now we've met him at Branson Z Fest, I believe,
mhm.
last year,
Yeah,
and it was just I don't know what it was. Him and his wife Kelsey, they like to travel, and I think at one point last year they wanted to come to San Antonio. They called us up, and we had a night on the town. Man, it was a great time. This is a photo here. We are in front of the Alamo. I can't believe that the sunlight kind of blocked that out, but we had a great time. And just this week, I think 2 days ago was his birthday. So, just as a friend, wanted to say happy birthday to Kevin Steffen, and we look forward to seeing him again at another Branson Z Fest as well. But
good people.
yeah,
So,
so that's our shout out there for our kanpai, of course, guys. Let's look at the chats real quick, though. We did have a few.
Harold chimed in. He said Dallas 2006. I was like, I think that was right. I can't remember what year it was, but I mean, you go to enough of these, they kind of all just blend together. But yeah, maybe I thought it was Long Beach, but maybe Dallas 2006 was right. Maybe it happened twice. So, but
Awesome, awesome.
Edgar's in his garage tonight, working on his Z and listening to the podcast. Thanks for being on with us. I'm
That's the way it
assuming
needs
he's
to be
getting ready
done.
for the next big event. So yeah, good job.
Yep, yep. All good, man. All good. So if you want, Miles, I'll get on to the next one here. So guys, this part of the show is typically where we do Nissan news,
Yeah.
and this is where Miles and I we each scour the internet for some of the latest Nissan articles or articles of interest related to Nissan, Datsun, Infinity, and they come from both either the Nissan official newsroom or from media outlets at large. I'll got the first one, Miles. If you want, that's cool with you. I'll
Yeah,
go ahead.
tear it
I'll
up.
kick it off. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'll share my screen on this one, guys. Of course, as we always do. So what I wanted to share this episode is more of a history lesson, and honestly, it was news to me. I really didn't think of it or know of it before. So if it was news to me, hey, I wanted to share it with you guys. But what they're talking about here, this article came from classicmotorsports.com. They're talking about a 240Z Datsun 240Z record holder at the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah. These records were set in the 70s, at least at that time, record holder. But what makes this story unique and great to me was that, when you think of Datsun and Z car, especially in the 70s, they had just come out. And I mean, I think at that time, Datsuns were widely known as just being an affordable car when you think of the 510s and the Roadsters. Economical, because this is also probably, you're getting into the gas crisis era, you know? It's not very, I don't think it was very common to think of speed record holder when you thought of Datsun at that time, and much less, in a straight line. Even today, when I think of Datsun, or if I asked maybe most people with Datsun, they might say, um, a canyon cruiser. You go out some curvy roads, you have a good time in a nice classic car. So, what I liked about it so much was that we're talking about Bonneville Salt Flat record holder Datsun Z cars.
Mhm.
So that's what this article is about. And let me see if I can share some photos on this one. I'm gonna go ahead and scroll down and share a few photos as we go. But just to give you guys a little bit of a history lesson, though, this 240Z was a chassis that was used and tweaked by multiple and tweaked with multiple iterations between 1972 and 1976, and raced and setting records again at the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah. This chassis, this particular Z car, went through multiple owners. First owned by Racer Brown, and he was a famous race car camshaft grinder who essentially broke records with this car by reaching. Think about it. Again, this is in 1972. 152 miles an hour for this class. Of course, we know cars can go faster even then, but for, again, in competition, you have different classes. So for, I believe it was the F class, 152.134 miles an hour was a record that it set. And I believe it did it with the original 2.4 liter inline six engine. Of course, eventually what you saw happen, though, is that this car, this chassis, was then handed or sold over to Nissan USA volunteers. They were
Mhm.
led by Bob Stockman, who got their hands on it.
Right.
And over the next couple of years, literally, this is um, you might call it a Nissan backed program.
Yeah,
Essentially,
the tech
uh,
center actually. At that time, Nissan had a tech center, and the
mhm,
tech center employees all got it. And I know this vehicle well because I actually talked to a guy named Jaffe who ended up
yes,
owning this car years. Sorry, I apologize. I don't mean to steal your thunder, but
no,
yeah, it was a technical group of guys that actually put it together. The gentleman on the far right, I think
mhm,
that's Stockman, if I remember correctly, and
okay,
I lose names for the rest of those, but I remember like Tom O'Connor was another guy that was involved. And I'm going off of
yep,
memory here, so if I get anybody's name wrong, I do apologize. But I remember Stockman was the guy at the end, and
mhm.
I heard a couple funny stories about him getting in and out of the car, like as far as them adjusting and stuff. But I won't go into that to bleed out time here. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was an adopted thing at that time for them to put it. There's a lot of history in the car. I'm glad you talked about it, but I didn't want to steal focus. But please continue.
No, all good, man. But yes, like you said, man. Essentially, uh, oh, where was it at here? This was essentially a Nissan-backed program at the time. Again, like you said, Bob Stockman was the lead, and he was also the driver for most of these
Yeah.
record-setting attempts here. Um, these volunteers, Nissan employees, were handed a $5,000 budget essentially each year that it owned that car. And of course, the program essentially ended in 76. I actually looked this up because I was like, $5,000, what is that really? So $5,000 in today's money was actually about, or sorry, $5,000 back then was like $26,000 today. So if it gives you a better perspective of the budget that they were given for this car to go and attempt to break these records, that's a rather, you know, I think a healthy budget. I mean, I think, Um, essentially, though, this chassis continued to break its class records, ultimately reaching 166.37 miles per hour in 1976. And for those who know the Bonneville Salt Flats and how they come up uh, with that time that set, it's not like it's a peak one time reached. It's actually an average of 3 runs along the way. There's a whole set up to it. So this was not just a one time thing. This was an average. So Bob, though, in this article recalls, I'll scroll down a little bit more to Tom O'Connor, like he did say. Um, Bob recalls that there were actually um, owners and racers in an E-Type Jaguar and also a 300 SL Mercedes. They said they were so pissed off that the Z went so fast. When you think about it, speed per dollar. Of course, like I said earlier, Datsun, and at least from the perspective I've had, is that it was the economical alternative to a sports car in the 70s. And so you got these guys in Mercedes and Jags, and they're just you know, surprised, shocked, and pissed. It's just that how could this car actually go, um, that fast? So, um,
Well,
the
if I may, I mean, you got a bunch of Nissan, you got an entire Nissan technician center behind you.
mhm.
They're going to kick some ass. I mean, let's just call it
Yeah,
what it is. These guys are innovators. And to be honest, I mean, let's look at the aerodynamic design of this car to begin with.
mhm.
From a stock perspective, it's already a very good design. And then they're just going to come through, slap a Genos on it, modify it, and God knows whatever else they did on this car to streamline it, and then drop the center, and then go from there.
Mhm.
I mean, come on,
Oh,
these guys were gonna, they were gonna come out and kick some tail. They did
mhm.
surprisingly better than they anticipated. So
Yeah. So, as far as the last records that they were set, though, the last record actually beat the Mercedes Gullwing, in which apparently was in the same class, by 13 miles an hour. That's how much faster it was. For reference, 13 miles an hour faster on an average top speed than a Mercedes Gullwing. That record, again, at 166.37 miles per hour, actually would hold the record for 9 years. It wasn't until the mid 80s that that record was broken by a Ferrari. So to see a Datsun, outshine Jags and Mercedes, and then just barely, they said the record was barely beaten by a Ferrari 9 years later. I really goes, I think, is a really accolade that Nissan and this factory effort did so well. I do really want to let people know this. Again, I didn't know this, and so I really enjoyed this article. Um, now that's the first half of the story. So what's happening now is that after 1976, Nissan never returned to the Salt Flats in any fashion as a full-on factory effort. Although we do know that there are a lot of private teams who will use a Datsun or a Nissan or Infiniti, but it was never Nissan specifically. This chassis specifically has sat it sat at the Lane Motor Museum in Tennessee for nearly 50 years. It was just collecting dust. It wasn't until about 2020, like you said earlier, Miles, we know him as a renowned Z car owner and fanatic, Randy Jaffe. He was able to take possession of this car, and with the assistance of Rob Fuller at Datsun Z Car Garage in California, they were able to recondition this car, restore this car back into its former glory. I think at that time when that car was received, the original engine that was used to set those records was no longer in the car. I believe there was a race. I think as of right now, actually, I'll get some more pictures here. That's Randy Jaffe and Rob Fuller there with the car now as it is behind them. And its current glory, they said it took 60 hours of detailed time to get the car kind of back
damn.
to its original kind of restoration phase.
With something that historic, it's like you really kind of have to when we're talking like paint restoration, and there are some actual avid painters on here, so I'll kind of watch what I say, and then maybe they want to kind of chime in and correct me. But it really is like you have to take everything off in like really low layers. You're like, I'm not going to start with 1,000 on this. I'm going to really take my time in detail, and then really get into all, because you start dancing with the idea like I can't take this away or clean it up because this wasn't the way that it historically it was, like
Yeah.
like adjusting jams and things like that. Like you have to leave it the way it was. You're really just kind of going in and polishing the historical aspect of the car.
Yeah.
You're making
And,
it clean and detailed, and so
and
it's something you have to wrestle with as somebody that's trying to preserve history, or bring out bring the brilliance back
yeah.
to something this historic.
That's true, and that's actually something that's really kind of cool for those who know uh, Randy Jaffe too. Is that this is not his first Datsun restoration. He has a handful, I mean, tons of other Nissan Z cars. Essentially, his private collection is a museum on its own, and a lot of them are tribute cars. But what he's known for what he's done in the past is, as part of a restoration that he has, he will find uh, some of the original parts that were used in a racing car and purchase them and put them in the car. So not only are you seeing a restored version, but it's still retaining character, and it's actually like these um I don't want to say souvenirs, but like these timeless pieces. A lot of these components that are in his cars have a story of their own. Where'd you get that steering wheel from? I'll give you an example. This car here, the steering wheel of this car was used in a essentially was used in the 432 Datsun. You know, the Datsun where you had the 2-liter dual
Mhm.
cam that was used in the early Skylines. This particular chassis number, when you go back to the factory, uh, according to records here, were tweaked. A certain number of chassis. This was one of them, as far as being lighter. You might even say a thinner metal is what they mentioned here in the article. But the steering wheel alone was from a 432 edition Datsun Z car. The seats as well. These bucket seats were from a 432 Datsun as well. Also, in this picture particularly too, if you look at the door jams, you know the car is being maroon with the stars and all. In the door jams, you see orange, and the reason behind that orange overspray, it's not overspray, maybe a previous layer of paint, is because remember where I was talking about the previous owner being Racer Brown. Uh, owning this car before. Well, the car was originally orange at that point, and so that orange is sort of retaining that livery of what the car was in a previous life, which is a story. So it's I don't want to call them Easter eggs, but it's like if you ask why something is specifically this way in this car, Randy would be the type of guy that tells you everything about that car. Um, it really is an amazing build, though, too. Again, this is through classicmotorsports.com. We're going to put the notes in this article in our show notes. You can read more about it. Again, not only is this a really cool history lesson about this car and Datsun setting speed records, but it is also a story of redemption, where you see this car that set all these records and essentially collected dust for nearly 50 years, only to be brought back into its former glory by a dedicated Z enthusiast. It really is a beautiful story, though, and that's what I really wanted to share with you, um, as this article, though, Miles. I'm glad you know so much about it. I didn't know you knew as much about it as you did.
I know about it because I've talked to Jaffe, and this was years ago, about that car, and
Hmm.
it was just kind of one of those things where we talked about it in passing. And I had for a time, I had a small obsession with Bonneville Z's, running, especially like some of the early Datsun stuff, and then of course, getting into when they were getting really competitive with the 300ZX. So I just kind of had you know, this fanboy crush on some of them, and there's just a cool factor that goes along with that, And so I knew that he was one of the owners, so I had an opportunity to kind of chat with him. It's been some time. I can't even recall. Again, it's probably at a Z convention for my historical recollection. So yeah,
I see.
I did want to say George chimed in here and he said exactly right when you were talking about Dawson's on the scene,
Hmm.
with doing the Bonneville that time. So he said exactly right, guys. He goes, I was around when the Z first came out. We didn't know what to make of it. And basically, is this Z um, car for real? And he goes, well, it was, and it is, to this day. And I would kind of agree.
Yeah.
At that time, it was extremely groundbreaking, and the aerodynamics, be it whatever they were at the time, for style,
Hmm.
it lent itself to an extremely aerodynamic vehicle at that time,
Hmm.
which turned out to be extremely competitive.
Yeah.
So,
So, one thing before we move on, though, Miles, is that when I think about this effort and the records that were set with this car, it reminds me of what the Safari Z did. in the
Hmm.
South. Was it the South Africa rally,
Yeah.
African rally, where you know I think they're similar in some ways, but also different. Like for example, this was sort of like, oh, hey, we got here's a minimal budget. Go have fun. Employees on their off time. Nissan employees on their off time did this. Didn't really know what to expect. And here we go. They are setting records that held for nearly a decade. And then you
Yeah.
get into like what the Safari Z was like, which was I
Well,
don't
that
think they
was to
really
really kind
expected.
of the Safari entry was really to kind of get the Datsun name out there. I mean, they were dumping
Yeah.
these, and this is like they were in it before the S30 kind of jumped in, and then here they are. They dropped the S30, and it just turns out to be this amazing machine that just sets a huge mile marker with being competitive and doing extremely well in those settings
Hmm.
in that day and the age. And that particular race, in my opinion, from a global perspective, really kind of it put the Datsun on the map. It put that
Hmm.
that Z on the map, and it made Nissan really kind of a celebrity overnight at that time. So
And it makes Datsun more versatile. Again, from a rally perspective, which is an endurance race in high heat and rough terrain,
yeah,
to get it into a salt flats high speed record, which is a very American thing, I think, right? Top speed, straight line. So you see this versatility that the
it was the
Datsun Z
time.
is capable of.
Yeah. At the time, I mean, everybody was chasing speed, and you. Okay, and I'm gonna nerd out here for
Go
a
for
couple
it. Go
different
for it.
seconds. So, at that time in the history of the United States, I mean, we were coming off of everything from rubber shortages to oil shortages, and you had a bunch of people that wanted power, that wanted to show off the power that, and then the hot rodding scene was kind of coming around, and then the low riding scene was kind of coming around. We're talking, this is probably 15 years before the Datsun S30 even kind of was there. So the setting of everything was there. Indy was starting to take off. NASCAR was, in the infancy of its roots. All those things were like perfect, and speed and power were really in the American culture at that time. And the drivability and the endurance aspect was very much on a global setting, which it kind of still is to this day. People are still thinking rally and everything else, and there's a lot of differences in cultures when you start talking about placement of countries and things like that. But
Hmm.
one thing that kind of reigns true in, at least in the American culture, it's always been like, how fast can you go? And it's either like, how fast can you go in a particular setting, in a 1/8 or a 1/4.
Yeah.
And then from there, it just said, well, screw it. How fast can you go as a whole? And then you had these like races that kind of came around, and the salt back in the day was its own world.
Yeah.
And I nerded out on that culture for a really long time too, as well. And the custom culture and the Bonneville Salt Flats were at a certain point married, and then a few years
Hmm.
later, Datsun had an opportunity to try its hand at it, and here you are. And that's why people, people don't really know the importance of that car, and I'm glad you had an opportunity to kind of talk about it in this setting. So
Awesome, man. Awesome. Let's move on to our next episode. Our
yeah,
next.
sorry.
No, 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 no. It's good. I mean, I think I'm actually pretty excited about this next story, which is yours.
Yeah, sure.
And this was an article. Man, I don't want to give it away. You go for it. I'm actually excited to talk about this.
Yeah, not a problem. So this is kind of something that I've been harping on for a while. If you've kind of listened to me rant from time to time, like I always have this massive complaint that there's not a what I like to call like an entry level or a midship sports car that's available. Of course, you kind of shoot yourself in the foot as a manufacturer. Like you develop a sports car as fabulous as the Z, and then
Hmm.
here you are developing a sports car that's at a lower level, that's at a different cost rate. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things that we've kind of had historically with Nissan in the past. I mean,
Hmm.
we've had those luckily in historic years, but Nissan's kind of gone through this whole let's especially coming after COVID. We've talked about this. If you go to back to our episodes, there was an importance on let's focus on getting the company healthy. Let's focus on getting back to where we want to be as an entity. But
Hmm.
we've always kind of left that dream out there like, hey, we'll get to it when we get to it, as far as a brand, in my opinion. But, and this article came out, it was with motor1.com, and it said basically at the top of it, it says Nissan wants to sell a cheaper electric sports car to people in their early 20s. Now, stop there
Yeah.
and let's talk about what they're featuring at the forefront of this article, and it's the IDX. For those that don't know, the IDX is a massive romance piece for me and Mike. So
Yes.
much that we've reached out to Malcolm Beasley, who was the designer of this car, and I talked to him probably on a weekly level. And and it's funny, if you follow his page through like Facebook, and he's very much on Facebook, a very nice guy. He will openly still talk about it about once a month or every 2 months. Like, God damn, I wish we would have made that car. And it's funny that the title that goes along with this car is always the greatest car never
That was
made,
never made.
greatest Nissan never made. And there's probably a lot of truth to it. I mean, for whatever reason, the path wasn't followed, which I think was a huge mistake. But again, I'm not sitting in a boardroom. I have no idea what's happening within the culture or financially with the company at the time. So they had to make a decision. And unfortunately, they did not make the IDX to today. I mean, we had
Mhm.
production, we had models that were there to kind of tease the public, but unfortunately, these vehicles never went into production, which is a huge sadness to us because I absolutely love this. I haven't. It's rare that I'm like, here's my wallet kind of scenario, and this is one of those cars
Yes.
that I was just like, here's my wallet. I gotta have one of these, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out. But
Mhm.
going back to the article, it talked about again, Nissan wants to sell a cheap or sell a. I'm gonna say I hate the word cheap. I want to say a mid-level, cost-effective sports car to the people that are they're going after the people in their 20s, which makes sense.
Mhm.
So when you read through the article, it talks about the IDX, and that's almost 10 years ago
Mhm.
when it had mentioned it. But there's a glimmer of hope, as it kind of mentioned in this article, and I'll read it verbatim. It said, "That said, there's a glimmer of hope. A sub Z model will be released one day, based on a statement made by the company's product planning boss Ivan Espinosa in an interview with Top Gear magazine." This is his words. "Depending on which point in time you take, we've always had the GTR," which he's right, in a
Mhm.
sense. We've always had a Z, in a sense, at some point with pauses in there. And we've always had an entry level vehicle, either a hot hatch like the Pulsar
Mhm.
or something else down there at that price point and performance point. And this today is something that we kind of miss. This price point and performance point
Mhm.
is what they're thinking about hitting for the future. Now, I'm going to take this back about within the last year. There's been a lot of like hints and tips about, hey, we're thinking about this or we're thinking about this. And of those, I mean, of course, the IDX is a dead project. I hope it's not. I mean, hopefully, anybody listening from Nissan in this, we want it. It took you 10 years. You could still make it. Just like all those people at Ford who said, we'll never make a Bronco. Now the Bronco's out and Ford's selling the piss out of it
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
guess what? People wanted them. But
Mhm.
that's just my opinion. So if you decide to go anything else beyond the IDX
Yeah.
and that project is still dead, so they're talking about, it would seem Nissan wants an electric rival for the likes of the Toyota GR86, which they're selling like hotcakes from what I understand, the
Mhm.
Subaru BRZ, and of course the Mazda MX-5 Miata. So those are the current competitors in the ring for
Yeah.
Nissan to contend with.
Yeah.
However, it's easier said than done, since launching an entry-level sports car would mean it would have to cost less than the cheapest Z available in the United
Yes.
States, which is basically a $43,000. Let's call it a $40,000 mark by the time this is relevant within the next 3 months, right?
Mhm.
So you're talking about a $30,000 vehicle at this
Yeah.
time. So what does that mean?
And EV, by the way. It's got to
And
be electric.
EV, it's got to have the performance and be that. So Nissan would basically be selling it at a price point that they may not
So,
make a lot of money from it,
Yeah.
but it would definitely showcase everything that they're hoping to put out there in the
Hmm.
world. And if you followed this particular podcast, and of course you followed anything in regards to Nissan news, you know that EV is a strong potential future when it comes to all the innovation that Nissan's been doing. You can see it all through Formula E. You can see everything that's happening with Pole to Pole, Araya, and then of course everything that Nissan's kind of spitting at you, and all the thousands and thousands of dollars, let's say millions of dollars, that
Hmm.
Nissan's putting into their battery development that's kind of happening here in the future. So, what does
Yeah.
that mean? It means that we could potentially have something that's sporty in that price range. The gist of this all. So,
Hmm.
we've talked about the Nissan Silvia in the
Yep.
past, aka the 240SX, 180SX, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
But we've seen some prototype designs that were just kind of thrown out there in the ring. So
Yep.
what would you think that would be palatable, that people would actually buy in that price range?
You're asking me. Well, you're asking the wrong guy because I am a cheap bastard. But
Well, this is designed for you. It's
yes, yes.
designed for
Well,
the cheap bastard, if you will,
yeah,
that still wants performance. You
yeah.
know, I'm
I
talking to you.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. So I see what I want, but I see what I see more so is the challenge, because it is a challenge. So they want. So you're right. So you want a cheap, affordable EV sports car.
Yeah, I
Now
want a
what's
Model 3 Tesla killer. That's what I want.
Model 3 Tesla? What?
Model 3 Tesla is the baseline Tesla, and I want
Okay,
something that will kick a Model 3 Tesla's butt.
okay, okay. I would say I don't even know what the performance is on one of those. I couldn't think about that. But
It's
what I am
it's
thinking
it's
about.
okay.
So before we get into that, I'm thinking sports car. What does sports mean to me? Of course, well, we all know Nissan and Nismo are known for its suspension and handling. That's one thing. So you want great suspension and handling. You want a braking package. Now EVs are relatively heavy. They have a really good low center of gravity, but they're relatively heavy because of the size of the battery pack. Like you said, like you mentioned, though, this concept this was thrown out
This
years
is
and
one
years
concept.
ago.
Yeah. So
It is a two door though. I love the idea of a two door, whether it's a hatch or a
I think a
coupe.
two-door EV would
A
be
two
would
door.
be hotcakes. So
And then I started thinking about the price, and I was starting to think, isn't the latest Leaf, maybe after all the government rebates and whatnot, that a Leaf nowadays, entry level Leaf, is about 27,000, maybe 30,000. So you're almost looking at uh componentry, maybe shared parts of what a Leaf has, but you're going to want more performance than what a Leaf provides, because that's what's going to provide that sport. Even if it is, I mean,
I, I
you've got
think I
tons
think
of torque,
the
but
problem with the Leaf, and this is what I've always kind of felt with the Leaf, is it initially launched as an EV eco-friendly brand.
yes,
As far as that model is concerned.
yeah,
So it drops to the market. It proves that, hey, we can make an economical car that gives you the gas mileage that you want at a reasonable price point,
okay,
right? So it launches.
economical,
So
okay,
if I told you, hey, I've got a Nismo Leaf that's going to be available to the market, and I'm just talking to the
yeah,
non-Nissan enthusiast, like you just put it out there on the street for somebody to buy,
yeah.
would it sell, or do you need a two-door Nismo Leaf, or do you feel that you have to kind of rebrand this completely in some other type of package, which I think is what they're trying to strive to do.
Well, if it depends on the styling. I mean, I think of signature, the body language, if you will, of what a car is. If you came out, because the Leaf is, was it a five door? It's a four door with a hatch, right?
Mhm.
So I mean, if you saw one that had more performance with suspension and handling, I think it's going to be. Nissan has spent over the last 10 years establishing the brand of Leaf, of what it is,
And
what
it's an
its
amazing brand.
essence.
There's nothing that takes it away.
Yeah,
Uh,
but
but
if
I'm
they go
saying
to
if you're going to push that level of performance, and I'm
yeah,
talking Nismo performance at this point,
yeah,
would you do it to launch it to the world and have the expectation that you're going to sell a lot? I
I
think if you kept the Leaf brand and
uh
then, of course, came up with another sports car minded EV, I think it would do a lot better. Sadly,
I would
just because I don't think people would understand historically. Um,
Well, I mean, I think depends. In I can't believe I'm saying this. Almost is that if there was a Nismo Leaf, it would need to have a significant change in body language, like a body kit and suspension and performance. Though,
well,
let me give you an
your
example.
base and Nismo, so that's
Yeah,
what would be launched.
yeah. Now, and the only reason why I say that is because and this is just a parallel.
Mhm.
You've seen the Toyota Prius, right? Have you seen the Prius lately and what it looks
Yeah,
like
exactly.
and the
I know what you're
variations that it comes in now? It almost looks like a sports sedan
talking about.
now or a
But what did
sports two
Toyota
door.
do? They came out with the ATX equivalent. You know,
The what?
they retroed it. You know,
They
they yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but you see the extent at which how much it's progressed. I
Mhm.
think Nissan would need to do the same thing with the Leaf to establish. Yes, this is a variant of Leaf, but this is the wildest version to where you're not even going to think about the base model after this. Like the Leaf RC. The RC was a beautiful looking Leaf that was only for race production. If you took like those body lines, esque
You
and
basically
labeled
want
a
an
Nismo Leaf.
optionable body kit on these cars, and I get it. But why make the Leaf compete with a sports car model? You're making two of the same thing, and
Yeah.
you don't do that if you're a
Well,
car
Well,
manufacturer.
that's the thing. You would have to use the Leaf would have to be the sports car, which is probably the path of least resistance because it's already established. Now, if you're going all new, yeah, it's going to be a larger financially, a bigger hill to climb, but I still think worth it. I think the biggest challenge, no matter here's what I think. The biggest thing right now is costs. Now, EV is still relatively a new technology. We're always talking about materials and cost and manufacturing, even carbon footprint. There's still so much to cost. They cost so much that the profit margin is, like you said, it's going to be small. I think if Nissan is going to do a 30,000, less than Z version of an EV sports car, it I don't think it's going to happen until after 2028. My opinion, because we've
You
always
throwing
talked about
times
solid
out?
state.
All right,
Yeah,
all
I'm
right.
putting a timetable on it because 2028 they've said is the solid state battery era, which they're planning for.
Yeah, I know they
Those
got their money in it. So
solid state batteries are known to be cheaper, lighter, more common materials. That's what brings it more affordable. Um, they're able to charge faster, and I imagine by then they're going to be
well, the
battery
cooling,
technology is
and
going to
then
be
the
in a
cooling option is going to be a huge thing too, as well. So
cooling and a smaller footprint. I think the batteries are going to be in a smaller footprint, which would
thank
give
God,
you that two-door coupe option.
it's just so
So I
massive.
wouldn't say that's going to be about 10 years, my opinion, if we see an affordable EV. I love the idea. I hope they do it, but
I
that's
think you're
my
wrong. I think it's 5 years.
opinion. I'm sorry, man.
Um,
I blacked out when I'm talking about this stuff because this stuff
yep.
is like,
All right.
woo.
So I'm just going to throw this out there. All right. So you
Yeah.
have the IDX. Obviously, everybody loves the IDX. They want it to be made. But if Nissan can't make the IDX for whatever reason,
Hmm.
the Silvio would be a cool idea. But I'm going to throw this out there, and I'm just going to say it right now.
Yeah.
Mid four.
Ooh.
I'm just saying, like the same type of designs, and just kind of brought it back. I don't, you if you want to do something midship, you can if it makes sense to get kind of displacement that you want.
Mhm.
What if you did something, and nobody really knows the mid four too. It's a concept, so not everybody will love it, but maybe they
Right.
will. But if you throw something out that's like mid four, you kind of make it look a little sexy.
Hmm.
Like you just kind of like the new like a DeLorean like back or even like the accents for like the new GTR, dude. That's it.
Hmm.
That's it. You're firing on all cylinders right there. No pun intended on the EV. Though, but I'm just saying, like that is just hotness right there. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. If you gave me if you told me that I can get the mid four in an EV and it's kind of set up like a two seater, like
Hmm.
a Toyota MR2 from back in the day, the old Misters, or
Yeah.
something like that. Oh, forget it, son. Take my money.
Yeah. I
So
I I was thinking about that. I love the idea of a what you said mid four, and but I was starting to think too, like the power plant of an EV car is so much more condensed than an
I
ICE
know.
engine, which is
I get
because you
excited.
have a block and then you have the transmission, but with EV, it's like the drive is just a single drive because I've seen rear wheel drive EVs, I've seen front wheel drive, I've seen all wheel drive.
I get it, Mike. You don't want to make the car. I get it.
Sorry, I'm just getting it from like a textbook situation here. I'm just trying to get my definitions right. But I would love to see, but from a body line perspective or some sort of homage. Hell yes, dude. I think that'd be
Oh,
awesome.
that'd be so cool. I'm just saying something cool like that. That'd be pretty nice. But yeah, just like mid 4. Like just
Yeah.
something cool like that. That'd be. But I mean, you gotta. I don't even know what displacements would be. Like the power to weight ratio. I mean,
Mhm.
it's God knows. But it's just a cool idea that I kind of had in the back of my mind when I saw this article. So,
I'm gonna do you one better, man.
ooh.
R390. If there's the body lines of a R390 EV, that could be like a. I mean, not that big. We know
Yeah,
that
but
one is
the thing
doing
is, it's got to
insanely.
be 2 doors, and you want it to be like compact. That's the whole thing.
Okay,
Compact, and you
compact,
got to remember
two seater.
what it's getting in the ring with is like a Mazda Miata. To me, I'm thinking Mazda Miata,
Okay,
like just something like that.
I see. I see.
So
Yeah, smaller
anyway,
chassis. Okay.
Bob Sobey chimed in and goes something less flammable. It's
Something what?
less flammable because all the problems that are happening with the
That's another
EV.
story too with batteries and how to take care of a
Yeah.
fire of those things.
Edgar
That's
Furman
absolutely
chimed in
true.
510 form, and I feel really bad for the 510 guys because I feel like they just like that's it. The 510 came out, the greatness was what it was, and then
Yeah.
that was it. Those guys never had anything else to like to ban around, to fight to camp around with a fire. That was it. And when the IDX comes up, I was like, oh, everybody's gonna be buying these 510s. They're already buying them, but it's just going to launch that car to another
Yeah.
level of unattainability. It was already unattainable to begin
There
with.
you go.
But
And like you mentioned, what if they just went EV IDX? Like just say, hey, to me
now,
that body styling, you don't need to tweak it. It's been 10 years, but you still don't need to tweak
it's
that body
still
line.
it was ahead of its time at
It
that time.
was.
And you launch it today, it would still kick ass on the streets. Like it still would look better than anything else that's out there in
There
its
you go.
current setting. I mean, I don't know.
Where's my wallet? Let me just drop it on the
Yeah,
table.
just take
Yeah.
my wallet. Like, just take it. That's it. Fine. But yeah. So, but yeah, he's right. So that again, that's everything I had on that article. So yeah.
Awesome, man.
Now you had one more thing. Speaking of like just drama and fights, there was a
Yeah.
recent article that came out about the Nissan.com website. I know we've talked about it once or twice in here too as well because it's just a really good drama story. But
It's
there's been a newest update on it. I'll let you tell the story.
it's crazy. So I'll start. For those of you that go to Nissan's website, what is it nowadays? What is it? NissanUSA.com. It's not Nissan.com. It's Nissan. Why is that? Why didn't Nissan.com become the thing? Well, there's a huge story known about it. So consider this another little story that you can throw at, I don't know, Nissan mixers, Nissan nerd mixers where you hang out with people. I don't know. If you want to see people leave you, share this story with them. But this story is essentially almost 30 years in the making. But there actually is a long saga as to why Nissan.com is not used primarily, essentially, and why Nissan doesn't own it. So, want to share this with you guys and where it currently stands. Now, um, this comes from the Drive. This lawsuit, which has recently been released, claims that Nissan.com has been stolen after years of legal drama. Again, just to get started, though,
Finally,
this whole story begins with a man. His name was Uzi Nissan. He was essentially a serial entrepreneur in the 90s. And in 1994, I mean, I want to say even so early in the birth of the internet, he reserved the domain Nissan.com and Nissan.net. They were both in his possession. He actually used them for, at that time, a computer business that I think he was selling computers, something like that. Now you start getting into 1999. This is the dot-com bubble that we started to see internet is becoming more commercialized. Nissan at that point wanted Nissan.com. So they actually took Mr. Uzi Nissan to court, and they said, "Hey, this is our we believe we should own Nissan.com, and this person is domain squatting. He's saying he's just sitting on this site because he wants the money to sell it." And also, they're talking about trademark dilution, like harming the name of Nissan by owning this domain, Nissan.com. Actually, Mr. Uzi Nissan, after nearly a decade of court battles, won. We won the battle. He actually was able to keep Nissan.com and Nissan.net. That's why, to this day, Nissan USA is the site that we use to look at the current offerings from the Nissan catalog. Um, so that's where that story has been ever since, let's say, the last 15 years. What's happening now is that, unfortunately, Mr. Nissan has passed away. He passed away in 2020, of which the rights and the ownership of Nissan.com and Nissan.net has gone to his estate, his family. Um, so what the family has been doing most recently, essentially, they discovered that through the domain hosting site like GoDaddy. It's not GoDaddy, but it's another one. Uh, that site, um, they for some reason Nissan.com is not in his portfolio anymore, so he doesn't have ownership to Nissan.com, and we're trying to understand what's going on. Apparently, what the family is now saying in this lawsuit is that um, they claim that Mr. Nissan's account on the hosting site has been hacked by an unknown thief, and then the domain was then transferred to whoever owns it now, which is at least as of this point unknown, without authorization of the family. I'll give you an example. When you change your password on, on any site that you go onto,
Mhm.
usually you get a little email notification that says your password has been changed. If this is a fraud, please click here, right? You'll get an email notification. Essentially, they're saying that this website did none of that. There was no vetting process for the transfer of Nissan.com. So this family essentially lost the domain unknowingly and without their permission. That's what this lawsuit is about. They're requesting that uh, the domain host return Nissan.com to them, and they eventually want to go to GoDaddy to essentially manage this site from now on. But currently, if you go to Nissan.com and Nissan.net, it is offline. You're not going to find anything, and it really makes me think, though, man. The world of domain website domain ownership, it really is sort of a gray area. I mean, I don't know how much you know about it. I mean,
I I kind of it's funny. When a lot of this, and I'm that old that I remember the internet starting.
yeah.
Um, I remember when like websites were becoming a thing and people were buying them up and just like and went through and just bought up the most popular ones and they were cashing in on it, early on in that respect. There was a lot of people that were just kind of doing that just for cash grabbing, and they may
I remember that. Yeah.
say it's like a moral particular issue or whatever they want to say. They were just holding out for the eventual payday for these companies to kind of just buy it up, as it were.
Mm.
But they bought these things for pennies on the dollar, and then they're going to be selling them for some big cash grab eventually one day. I never liked that. I honestly thought it was just like, well, part of me is like, okay, well, get your payday. But at the same time, it's like if a business is trying to run its business and it makes legitimate sense, they should be able to buy it at a particular cap. You know what I mean? Like they say, hey, domains can never be worth more than say $5,000. Just
Mm.
but it's like I remember them selling for like ungodly amounts of money when it
Yeah.
first kind of came out, and it just I don't know. It seems just petty and a cash grab. And yeah, there's companies with deep pockets, and I'm not trying to say I'm a friend of any of these companies but I always just thought it's just a dirty way to kind of make money, as it
Uh-huh.
were. I mean, just cash it out, but there should be a cap on those, but there's no like anything else on the internet. There's no regulation for any of that kind of stuff. So that's just my particular opinion. Again, well, personal opinions are not any view of Nissan or but but again, that's just my particular view. I always felt like it's just like, come on. And the guys are, they obviously own the business. It makes more sense for them to do it. Unless there's something where you both own the name, and then maybe you have to figure something else out in a court of law. And that makes more sense. Like, hey, we'll
Yeah.
come to an agreement, but that all happens in a
Mhm.
judicial setting. But I don't know. I never liked it. And I remember when we did this article, it just never sat right with me. It's like, it's Nissan. Okay. They've had the name since forever, and you
Yeah.
just kind of come in and do that. Just like if you did Toyota, oh, it's it's for my knitting company. It's like, come on, dude, like for
Kid,
real, like
come on.
sell it off and then come up with another alternative. But I don't know,
Yeah.
just my 2 cents.
That's true.
But
My
but
but
yeah,
one last thing I was thinking about was he said he owned Nissan.com and Nissan.net.
mhm.
And I don't know if it's just me, but don't you feel like .net is like the AM radio of website domains? Like it's why .net? Even when it first came out, it's not like it's old, but it sounds old. You want the .com,
What was
man. Like
everybody buying? They were buying the .coms, the .nets, and it couldn't be .gov because
oh,
that had to be a government
.gov,
entity.
.org.
.org,
Uh,
that was another one.
um,
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
don't know. They're getting pretty creative nowadays. They're trying to make it like trendy or catchy, so people actually want to use it. I've seen them even abbreviate down to .co now. Like that's another
Yeah,
one.
that's right. So I
But
don't know, but
.net
I
never
feel
really got
bad
me.
for Nissan having to go through all this BS. Like actually, Nissan to North America to go through all this, or Nissan,
Well, they did,
the
yeah.
car entity. But yeah,
Well,
it's just a bunch of BS that they got to deal with. So I feel
and
bad
who's
for
to
them.
say? Perhaps Nissan will ultimately get it back one day, or to get
Yeah,
it.
hopefully
Uh,
they kind of come through with it. But again, I don't know much about the Nissan.com. I haven't been able to look at their website since it's been down. But regardless, I don't know. I just hope it kind of works itself out. And I mean, I don't know, it's just silly to me. But here we are, right? But
it really
yeah,
is.
I never liked that back in those early days of the interwebs when it first launched. So but needless to say. All right, so that's going to go ahead and lock up Nissan news, all of
Hmm.
our rants and our craziness. Let's
Yeah.
move on to motorsports. So, motorsports update. This is where we take a segment where we look into Nissan's current motorsports portfolio, its race entries, supported teams, and basically how's everybody doing. Now,
Yep.
Formula E is down right now. Mike, you are the Formula E king that kind of talks about all our stuff here on the show.
Yeah.
Do we have any preseason fun stuff that's kind of going on right now? Now that the season's over.
Well, there is actually. It's funny you mentioned that. Yes. So yes, the 2023 season of Formula E is over. However, pre-testing for the 2024 season is underway. Actually, it just wrapped up last, I think, a week and a half ago. So I'll share the screen. This comes from the Nismo.com news site, which is that Nissan Formula E team continues season 10 preparation with their Valencia test. And so what they're saying here is that preseason testing did take place October 23rd through the 27th. It was at the Circuit Ricardo Torma in Valencia, Spain. Um, our two drivers, of course, we're talking about Sasha Fenestras and our old friend Oliver Rolland, who is returning for the 2024 season, taking their time getting these cars honed in and feeling comfortable for the season ahead. A little bit of news from the preseason testing. There was actually an incident on the first day, which essentially uh, didn't give us much time to, or many teams at all, really, to do much testing. The incident was not involving Nissan, but it did affect track time in general for all of the teams. It wasn't until later on in the week that we really saw some good results, or we actually had extra time on the track to do testing. What we did see, though, as some of the highlights from the week of testing, is that Oliver Rolland actually was able to set pretty consistently top 10 lap times. His best lap was one of the top 10 pretty consistently throughout the week. So that was a good sign for our team. And then honestly, Sasha Fenestras on one day particularly, he completed it says here 122 laps in one day. He was actually able to make energy management progress with the car. So we are seeing progress um, for the 2024 season. Now, the opening round of the 2024 season starts in Mexico City, January 13th. So that takes us, we're just over 2 months away. So anything that we report between now and then will just be simple test results or any type of news for the team, not exactly race results. But that is Formula E on this one. And Miles, by the way, I do have the next one. So I'm going to do a twofer, but I think you have two right after me as well.
Sure.
So,
All right.
honestly, I wasn't going to report on this one, but it was pretty cool. I saw this today. Just today, we want to talk about the Sentra Micra Cup. Now, we all know the 2023 season for the Sentra Cup and Micra Cup is over as well. However, it was today that it was reported that this year's Sentra Cup champion, Mr. Alexander 14, was handed keys to a 2023 Nissan Sentra SR production car. Essentially, a car that he has, the blue one you see here in the pictures. Essentially, from what I'm learning here, one of the perks of winning the Sentra Cup, this grassroots cup, is that for a year you get a Sentra to ride around in, essentially a free car for the year. So this is what he did, taking uh, receiving the keys and receiving the car. He will have this access to this car until the end of the 2024 season. That is until a new champion is crowned next year. Kind of cool perk. I didn't know that, and so that's what I wanted to share. So
He's
apparently,
gonna
if
do
you
a big
win
old
Century
fat
Cup,
burnout as soon as he gets it. Ow! No.
and it makes me wonder: is it well? And I should know this. The Sentra SR edition. Is there a manual version option? Is it all automatic? I need to look into this too. Yeah, like
Look into it.
it's a comfortable ride though. I think we've had a Sentra as a rental car every once in a while.
We
It's a
beat
nice
up a
ride.
lot of rental cars in our day.
Yeah.
We call them test and tune sessions, but yeah, you know, yeah, I, I feel like we've beaten up all the midship rentals that we can get our hands on from Nissan. But we've always done that where we've kind of like had a good time with them, and I wouldn't mind getting my hands on a Sentra. Actually, maybe I'm gonna hunt for that for the next fun boys
Road
week out.
trip.
Maybe we'll see if I get our hands on a Nissan, and then we'll Sentra, and we'll toss each other the keys. So me, you, and I on, and we'll see if we can have some fun with it. Take it over through the twisties, and really just enjoy it for what it is. So we'll see. So
Sure, sure, man. Now you have the next two, I think, Miles. You've got
yeah,
Super
so
GT.
Super GT just kind of ran out this last round, and it's
Mhm.
now officially over. So I can actually talk to you about some of the things that happen with it. So it's actually pretty good for us. I thought we were going to do a little bit better, but I mean, considering how competitive of a year it was, Nissan didn't do too bad. I actually thought we did pretty darn well when everything was said and done.
Yeah.
Now, let me just kind of talk about the last round. So, starting with the 300 class, qualifying day, the GTRs just weren't doing great. I don't know what was going on, but we had horrible placement when it came to the 300 series.
Mm.
14th place Gainer to Next
Oh man.
GTR, 18th place the Ponos Gainer GTR, and then 24th place the Realized Nissan Mechanics Challenge, which is the favorite. It was just, I'm not sure if we
Wow.
have a sandbagging situation or it was just bad luck all around for all the teams, but that's just the way it laid out for the final day. And I apologize for
Okay.
for qualifying. Now, when it
Qualifying.
actually came to the actual race on Sunday, a little bit better. Sixth place, the Realized Nissan Mechanic Challenge GTR.
Mm.
That's not a bad placement. They finished in the points. 13th, Gainer Tenax, and 16th, the Ponos Gainer Tenax. Unfortunately, that ended up with the final round for the 300 series. Now, when it came to the 500 series, much different. So when it came to qualifying, Nissan put its best foot forward, especially with the number 3 car. The Nitera Motul Z ended up sitting on the pole.
Woo.
So they actually ended up taking first position in that. Fourth place, the Realize Advan Z did pretty well. Fifth,
Mhm.
Motul Altec Z, which has been all these vehicles have been holding strong all year. And then 10th place, which is one of my favorites, the Morelli Impulse Z. Not doing the best in qualifying, but it is what it is. Now let's go ahead and fast forward to Sunday's race.
Okay.
Um, the second place position was the Motul Altec Z. So they went in from fifth place in qualifying, jumped all the way up to second place. Fourth place, the Morelli Impulse Z, which where they finished when the end of that race. So they
10th to
moved up
4th.
from fifth in qualifying up to fourth in the actual race.
Mm.
And then the Nitera Z, who sat on the pole for the qualifying, jumped down all the way to 13th place,
Oh my God.
finishing out that just a bad day for them all around.
Mm.
They had some setbacks, but I will say that that pole position qualifying, if you go back and watch it, it was pretty stellar. Anyway,
Uh,
not to take away any, not to shine on anything that they accomplished on the qualifying day. 14th, Advan Z. So that kind of finishes out the season, as it
okay.
were, for Super GT. Let's talk a little bit about how we're sitting for the year, where Nissan sat at the end of
Okay.
that competition. So unfortunately, the 300 GTRs didn't place where I wanted to. And I'm just going to say for the third place, the Realized Nissan Mechanic Challenge GTR finished out in third place.
Okay.
Normally, they've won it historically in the past few
Oh.
years. Unfortunately, not that case, but still finishing a solid third. They've been competitive all year. They really gave it their all. But unfortunately, third place is still something you can hold your head up. I won't get
Yeah.
into anything else because there's a pretty long displacement between
Mm.
everything else in there. So I just want to give them their
Okay.
shout out for
Okay.
third place. Now, when it comes to 500 class, we've got a completely different situation. Unfortunately, first place ended up going to a Toyota,
Buh.
at that Supra. It is a very amazing car. It's been chasing us all year. If we've been showing it its heels, they were showing us its heels. It's just the way it goes.
Okay.
But unfortunately, the Supra did take first place for the end of the year. But a little bit of amazing news. Second place was taken by Nissan. Car number 3, the Nitera Motul Z, the car that's been competitive all year long. They
Yeah.
finished strong in the points and ended up taking the second place. Third was car number 23, the Motul Altec Z, that's just been consistent all year long.
Hmm.
They ended up finishing in third. And then I want to give a shout out to the formerly Celsonic, now Morelli Impulse Z, finished out in fifth, car number 1.
5th.
So
Wow. Wow. Okay. Okay. Well, I, it sounds like there was that battle for first, unfortunately. The second and third
ye-
completing a podium for the
it only
year.
took one or two races, and it would have been a completely different situation. And the
Yeah.
points weren't that far off to where we could have actually came through
Mhm.
and and take it a little bit better. But it was a weird year. I mean, between that massive wreck that we had before the break, and
Yeah.
that car really never kind of came back.
Yeah.
It held strong, but I mean, they were fighting everything with that vehicle for the rest of the year. So, we'll see how things play out as we start to ramp up in pre-qualifying for the next year. But I think we've got a lot of downtime before that happens. We'll have to get over the whole winter hump, and then we'll start talking about pre-qualifying and everything else that's kind of going to happen with Super GT. But again, I mean, honestly, I think it was a good year overall. So
Yeah. No, I
let's
don't.
talk.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, last year was first, but still a solid 2-3
Mhm.
is pretty damn good, man. I agree.
235. I mean, that's not bad in 500 series. So,
Yep. Yep.
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about also a more localized racing event that we love to kind of cover, which is the Nissan Challenge. Now, the Nissan Challenge, for those that do not know, is a it's an 8 round event that's held for the 2023 season in collectively in California. Now this has been going on for some time. I think first round was actually in February, and we have the last round. Excuse me, the latest round was round 6. That was actually happening in October. That was actually the Streets of Willow, with 2 more rounds set to go, round 7 and round 8. But what I did want to kind of talk about what happened with round 6. Now, round 6 just finished out, and I want to talk a little bit about placement. This is broken up currently right now between 4 different classes. And the round 6 was again, which was the Streets of Willow, which is actually on the back of the SR20 reunion. It had a great showing. So again, we've had some Edgar chiming in. He had some tons of pictures and things they wanted to share. I would have loved to have them before. But let's go ahead and oh, well, there you go.
Here we go, man. I got a few. Go ahead.
Right.
Keep on talking. I'll
Keep
jump
on.
in.
Run the gallery in the background. Thanks again for Edgar for sharing, because I love some of the photos and some of the stuff that's kind of coming out of the series this year. So again, let's talk about a little bit about round 6. Streets of Willow. This is where this all went down. Let's talk about Class 1. First place went to Miguel Santiago. In his S13, which is kind of weird because normally Charles Parks dominates that series. And Charles Parks, if you're listening, what the hell, bro? Let's see here. But again, I'm glad Miguel took the first place in that position. So kudos to him. Second place went actually out to a Miguel Zuniga with rocking on a Z34. And third place went to Evan Tellez in his B13. Good job, Evan. All right. Let's go ahead into Class 2. First place ended up going to a Tyler Gray rocking a Q50. Good job, sir. Second place was going to a Raul Fileto in a B13. And third place was to Sonia Klaus in a Z33. It's crazy that the B13s are kicking as much butt as they can in their class, right? Isn't that nuts?
That's awesome.
So, Class 3, let's talk a little bit about first place. First place to Adam Jha. Good kudos to him for taking it in the Z33. And then, of course, the second place, which was Nick Isidro in his Z34. And then, of course, Nate Rosso in his Z34 too as well, in second and third. So, yeah, Z33 and a 350, and then a Z30 and a 370 in the second and third. Interesting, huh?
You seeing this, man? But I don't mean to stop you. You see this?
What?
Yeah. Some guy, one of the doors opened up mid-race, man. That's
that was
a
it. He was
moment.
just letting. He was just letting that little gas.
But he's in the zone. He's not even looking, man. He's just looking at the track.
He'll close that door with the sledgehammer later on when he goes into the pits. Not a big deal. Class 4, first place was a Brian Abad. He was rocking a B14. And then, of course, we've got, let's see here, second place was Kyle Fix in a B14. And then third place was a Sandy Isaac holding it down with an S30. So, yeah, interesting. That's one thing I love about this series is just the diversity within the Nissan brand. So, look at all that. God, man,
it's amazing, man. I
it makes me want to get a B13. Every time I think about it, I was like, man, I should get
I'll you get the B13, I'll get the 200 SX, and we'll go have some fun messing around. Rolling on 13s, man. Just hauling ass as best we can,
Yeah, and Edgar chimed in here just a little bit. He was unfortunately absent for SEMA. Spinny Mathenji, hi from the Adelaide, Australia. Do you want some of our weather? Currently 106 degrees. Jesus Christ.
Oh, my God.
They're having another one of those heat bubbles. Oh, my God. Remember that? I hope it's not fires again that was happening all over. And yeah, damn, dude. Just that sucks. Right now, I don't know. I'm in San Antonio, Texas, which is, I always say, a cousin of Australia and the United States. It's what, 80 here right now, average 70 something.
They do have a wildlife ranch out here which houses zebras and giraffes and lions. So
you're going to say something just to make them feel better,
I'm trying. I mean, in the summer though, it can get bad, but right now for November, 106 in November. Well,
damn, that's brutal, man.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Then
hope
again,
it passes for you guys. I love Australia. I need to make it there one of these days because there are tons of Nissan nerds in Australia.
oh, insane. Now, again, not to be dumb, I'm going to be a dumb for a minute. Now, when you are in the southern hemisphere, that means our winters are like their summers. Is that
I'm
a
gonna
fair
say
statement?
you're public school educated, so I'm gonna say
Yes,
you're wrong
I'm probably
on
wrong.
every level. You're
I
probably wrong
do know that the toilets spin in a different direction. When you flush that water, it's
because of the
counterclockwise.
centrifugal force.
I don't know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, that's a side
And
note.
I'm
But
wrong.
I,
Uh,
but
And you didn't
see
even
that part.
challenge me. I was wrong. I blatantly gave you wrong information. You didn't
And
even
the only
challenge
reason
me.
why I know that is because of The Simpsons. No, I'm just joking.
Is that the whole education system? So,
Yes, yes, yes.
Spinny chimed in again saying currently polishing up the 370 for a generations of Z display. Oh, nice. At the Adelaide 500 street race in a week or two. Oh man, that's a lot of polishing for 2 weeks, brother.
Whew.
So get in there.
Keep on doing it,
Hey,
man.
oh, hold
Currently,
on. Harold
yeah,
said we're
this spring.
correct. Harold said one of us is correct.
One of
So
us. Now, Spinny Mathingy did also chime in saying, yes, correct. Springtime here. Summer begins next month. I was right. Hey, check that out. I was
I usually
just
got
by the
lucky.
skin of my teeth. Just by
That's,
the.
you got lucky, son.
I got
So
lucky. That's luck. That's luck. Yeah,
now,
yeah, yeah.
this is everything that we kind of covered from motorsports, but we do like to chime in with special friends of the show, and then of course
Yes.
anything that stands out to us that is just amazingly and well done. And of
Yes.
course, we're talking about the recent information that we've got from
Yep.
our Optima Ultimate Car Challenge folks who we featured on the show here previously. Mike, you've got the news article.
Sure do. Sure do. So, if for anybody who's been watching the show, let's say within the last year, we have had actually a really good episode, number 59. For anybody who's interested, we had an interview with two people, which is Bob Sobey and Brian Vella. They are the part of the team. Of a 2013 Nissan GTR that has competed in the Optima Ultimate Street Car Challenge. And this is, I mean, to get full details, the best thing to do is to go to that website, or to that episode, and really get all the details that they shared with us, though. But essentially, what the Optima Streetcar Invitational is like, it's essentially a series of events, um, usually about 6 or 7. There are multiple classes of cars, but each of the cars are graded on multiple segments or tests. Examples include road rally, acceleration and braking, autocross performance, road course performance, and then you get into design and engineering of the car, and what makes it unique. And this ranges, and none of these cars are stock, man. These are just some modded out amazing cars. And so, yes, in the last year, our friends Bob and Brian have competed in this Ultimate Streetcar Challenge. And last year, they won. They were champions, first place of the 2022 series Streetcar Challenge. Now, fast forward to today. Um, Bob and Brian were defending their title this whole year to retain and be champions once again of this challenge. And sure enough, that's exactly what they did. And so that was what we want to do. We're going to give these guys a huge shout out and congratulations to Bob and Brian for defending their title in the Optima Ultimate Streetcar Challenge and becoming two-time champions of this series, which in their Nissan GTR. Um, Honestly, man, I couldn't be more proud and happy for them. This is their car at which they were competing with this year. It's got new livery, if you've noticed, Miles. Before was a kind of a
I
white,
saw that.
different scheme. Now they've got this amazing red scheme and livery. This invitational, I believe this did take place, and if they're online, they can confirm. I believe because it's not concurrent, but I want to say it's in the same time frame as SEMA, the final round. And
Mhm.
I think this is where this was happening. And there you go. There they are, right there, man. With their awards for 2023 being the essentially number one uh, champions, two-time champions of this challenge. Um, man, again, our interview with them and hanging out with them and talking with them, they're such down-to-earth guys. A lot of fun to be around. Really enjoyed them. Actually, here are some of the results that they shared with us too. So this kind of gets back into what I was telling you about earlier, Miles. The different segments that they have to compete in to win. Let's just look at number 2 and 3, which was a Model 3 Tesla, and you've got a Camaro. Uh, Road rally wise, they all scored 100. Okay, design wise, essentially second, Bob scored 95. Hot lap, actually outpacing the Tesla. They got a 97 in their hot lap. Autocross was a 96, essentially second place in that. And then getting into the acceleration and braking challenge, outperforming the Tesla Model 3, which is pretty cool to see because, again, EVs seem to be a threat sometimes, but not in this case. Their GTR really is just top notch. Overall, though, they won first place by a margin of about 13 points, which is rather healthy, I think. And definitely want to give shout outs to them. And I think I got one more picture here. There you go. There they are with the awards, with the car. And there again is Bob. So, again, shout out to Bob and to Brian. Congratulations for having won this. And we look forward. You got to let us know. It is. Brian just chimed in. He did say at the SEMA show. That is exactly where the final round
It's
took
usually where
place
it
at.
all kind of comes to fruition at that final round. So,
Yep.
man, I love the new livery. I know you're on with us here tonight, man, but I would just want to say I've watched the livery over the few races, and man, it looks good. And by the way, the forge line looks good. So I've just been a huge fan of their wheels, and I love their stuff. And yeah, it looks great, man. I know you have a lot to contend with. I mean, you got to make the car balance, and then of course you got to do the whole car show aspect of it too as well. So it's got to be a fully functional competitive car as well as being a fully functional show car too as well. And I know it's a lot to contend with. And of course, you've learned a huge amount from winning last year. And for you to kind of keep everybody off your back this entire time and keep it going again another year, that says a lot, man. So kudos to you guys for throwing down a second year. And without not having to utilize an engine diaper, that is an amazing feat.
That's right, the engine diaper. Oh man, they had a massive oil leak that they were trying to control in
and
the
they
final round.
still they had a massive leak
Oh,
last year, and they just wrapped it up with a diaper, and they
pig
finished it
blanket.
out and
Was it
kicked
called
butt
pig?
and took the first, right. And this year, everything, all the stars aligned, and they just got it all together, and no problems from what we hear on the surface. But again, we'll have to have them on the show, and they'll tell us about all their
Talk about
trials
it.
and tribulations, and then about everything they needed to put together here to take first for a second year this time in a row. So
Now, before we get off on the motorsports, wondering since you guys are with us, is there are you trying to do a triple crown at this point?
a triple crown.
Are you trying to do three-peat?
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
they're trying
know
to do
if it's is it
a
too
tree
soon to
peat.
tell.
Going for a three-peat.
Oh, going for a three-peat, says Brian. That is
Don't
man, my
change the
hat's off to
livery.
you.
I kind of like it. Keep the same
Dominate, man.
sponsors. I dig the spot. I dig the layout this year. I think it looks great.
Looks
So
amazing, guys. Keep up the great work, man. Yeah, we should probably follow up, man. We need to do some more follow up and see about what's going to
now we got to
happen
get
for
Brian and Bob on
2024.
one of these days, and we'll have them tell us all the crazy stories about what it took to win this year. So we got to have them on again. So,
Yes.
and if you haven't already checked out the Optima Challenge coverage that we did with those guys, definitely want to go back and check that out. It was a great article and a great interview. A great interview with those guys. Great podcast. We had a lot of fun. So again, we'll try to get them back on here. We'll let them decompress first. And then
Relax. Yeah,
we'll
go
try to
jump in the hot tub, have some fun, look at the trophy, and then
enjoy the win.
enjoy the win, and then when it's time, it's garage time again, right? Preparations for next year.
Totally.
Yeah, yeah.
So good. But yeah, again, a huge congratulations to those. This is kind of jumping into our special segment of the night. Now, this is actually where we kind of talk about something that we want to talk about. Now, we are coming off of, again, the heels of the show of all shows that we just kind of mentioned a second ago, SEMA. Now, Nissan had a massive um, we'll just say a turnout or display, if you will,
Yeah.
at SEMA this year. So SEMA, of course, is the premier automotive specialty product trade event in the world. Again, this is all for, and again, the acronym for those that aren't aware or even living underneath a rock is, of course, Specialty Equipment Market Association. That's what SEMA stands for. This was established, of course, in 1967, and traditionally the event is held every year in Vegas for the most part,
Yep.
every year that I've ever seen. Now, again, this is a massive trade show. It isn't not open to the public. You kind of have to be within the social media world or be within the trade to be accepted to be to grant entrance into it. Now, from time
Yes.
to time, this event is held in conjunction with other events. Porn convention, I'm looking at you. But, from time to time, it falls on a particular date that's pretty damn funny. Now, from time to time, it falls on Halloween. This year, it turned out to be on Halloween. So
Yes.
October 31st through November 3rd this year was
Yes.
when SEMA actually went down.
N-
Now,
n-
Nissan had a lot of showings here. And for those that, if you haven't checked out any of that through the Nissan USA, the Instagram page, you need to get woke and go check some of that stuff out because they had tons of stuff. They had the Safari Rally replica that was out there. Then they did a new Z that was a Safari Z that was out there. I mean, tons of stuff. What me and like Mike want to kind of talk about is a few things because there's so much. It was pretty Z and Nissan heavy this year. I mean, from what we were told, and for those folks that we know within our world that went and attended that. And of course, Nissan had this massive display. Again, I want to give a shout out to Janelle Gibbsy out there who and her crew that put together that. It was a beautiful display, and they did a great job with it.
mm,
But we want to give a shout out to a few other things
yeah.
that Nissan got awarded with, and of course, we want to give a shout out to some of the
Yeah.
lesser known vehicles that were out there too as well. Now, first off, Mike,
Yep.
you mentioned that Nissan actually ended up with an award this year. Is that right?
It did. So this award was given to Nissan actually very early in the convention. I want to say it was one of the first days.
Huh?
But Nissan and the Nissan Z specifically was awarded the 2023 SEMA Sport Compact of the Year award, and it was saying that the Z was being recognized at SEMA for its aftermarket potential. And so, I was trying to think about this too, is because essentially this has been maybe the second year that the new Z was at SEMA. The first
Yeah.
year, last year, still very, very new. I mean, not very many people had actually access to this car at that point. But this year around, yes, there has been way more people and businesses and companies that are able to modify these cars in time for this year's SEMA convention. So this was an award that Nissan received for the aftermarket potential that the Z car possesses. Part of me, I think is, I think it's amazing. I love it because yes, this car is beautiful even in its stock form. But when you actually put it in the hands of various creators, designers, uh,
Customizers, man.
customizers, it and oftentimes can just make the car look even more beautiful. And I will say, Miles, when the new Z car, chassis code RZ34, and if anybody knows the nomenclature for Z cars, essentially it is a very common, I'm not going to say the same, that's not true, but it is a very common chassis or footprint that shares a lot of commonality with the original 370Z that it's sort of based on. So this Z car had a really good head start, I'll say that, a running start with modification ability. Oftentimes, some 370Z parts would work on this new car, the new Z, with very minimal modifications. So again, that running start, you see a lot of companies provide a huge catalog for this car very early in the year, soon after it was released. Though, that's my take anyway. What did you have anything on it? I'm sorry.
That's about it. I mean, the Z, when it's crazy when the Z hits market, it usually kind of does that. It takes over SEMA, as it were. I mean, I remember when the 350 hit,
Yeah,
and SEMA was buzzing about the new Z. Everybody had to have a Z in one of their booths, just like when the GTR dropped. Everybody had to have a
yeah,
GTR when it hit the booth. 370s, yeah, just about that. When they hit, everybody kind of
hmm,
wanted to have. And then it was crazy. Like everybody needed an S30 in their booths for a hot minute. It was kind of one of
ah,
those throwback things. And not to take anything away from the newsy, but yeah, there was folks that want to get out there and be a little nostalgic and start modifying the existing stuff, and of course modifying the new stuff. And yeah, from what I understand, it was a very Nissan friendly SEMA this past year. And again, kudos to Nissan and being in the right position for it, setting up the most amazing display, from what I understand,
yeah,
of the show. I mean, there's tons of displays, and to
hmm,
stand out amongst all those booths
yeah.
is a challenge in itself. So.
The booth itself is as well. You're right, and I forgot to mention this too. Is that it when it came to the Nissan Z last year, the primary car that you saw was the Proto Spec Z because those
Mhm.
were the first edition Zs just coming out. And this is just me, but if you saw a Z that wasn't yellow last year, most likely it was wrapped or painted.
Yeah,
Essentially, at that point. Now here in 23,
Nismo.
not only more Z's, but this is the first year that you did see the Nismo edition Z at SEMA, and to be able to highlight all of its abilities is definitely another reason that makes it such again a winner of the Sport Compact uh, Car of the Year by SEMA. So
Right.
I know we wanted to start off our back alley chat with this accolade for Nissan. Want to give
Mhm,
them congratulations on that. I know we each have a build that we want to share.
mhm.
We can start off with yours, Miles, which is the. You
Yeah,
ready?
so I'm an S30 guy at heart. I've had a few of them, and they've kind of passed through my fingers, or I've kind of, passed them on to different owners. But I've always had a soft spot, like most folks, for the Datsun 240, 260, 280. Now, the again, SEMA was not short on S30 chassis at the event for sure. And of course, it's always hard to pick just one, but in my particular opinion, there was one car that kind of stood out to me for just being different and innovative. And albeit it may not have been the power plant that I kind of wanted, but again, for it to be as innovative and different, I really wanted to give a shout out to it. So, Motor Trend has the article where they kind of covered a new Datsun or a Datsun 240Z that was powered by a Tesla EV motor. But that's not the full story. The full story of this car is how it's done so well. Now, this vehicle was, of course, featured at the CSF Radiator Company booth at SEMA this year. Now, this vehicle, to me, as far as a collection of just design modifications, is just amazing. Now, the vehicle in itself is widened out dramatically in the front and the rear. Of course, there's aesthetic aero, uh, functional aero that's taken in the fenders and, of course, in the rear as well. And just the layout of the car overall is just so well done, in my opinion. And then, of course, the swooping hood line, you can't get any better than that. And of course, who doesn't like 6-inch plus deep dish all around? But that was
BBS.
kind of
Yeah.
what was done. What was crazy and bold is actually, if you kind of scroll through some of the photos here, is the taillights. Like
Yes.
typically, you take the taillights, and those are the one of the signature things of the S30 chassis. They were actually removed as it were, and then instead given pin line LEDs through the back section, and then of course exposed back. You know, maybe I'm just such a fan of the movie The Wraith that it kind of like salts a little of that into my into my early fanboy obsession. But I mean, anytime you have a car that's wide, carbon fiber, deep dish rims, and then you got a little accents of LED, and then you throw a little suede or Alcantara in there, dude, I
Yeah.
can't really. I'm not going to see any fault here. And then look at the engine bay; it's just kind of subtle,
Yeah.
so subtly done.
Uh,
And we talked a little bit about EVs of what you would want to see in a midship. This is it.
yeah.
This is kind of what I would want. Something simplistic, not a lot of covers. Of course, this is an S30. Nobody's going to take that and modify it and redo it again, but just throwing
Mm-hmm.
it out there.
I I did take a moment to read this article too, and
Mhm.
you, I love like most, and this is what SEMA's about, right? Like at least for us, is the build. What makes these builds so unique? So you are right. Yes, the power plant, the motor, the drive of this car is a rear-wheel drive Tesla power supply. Now the battery packs are not. So the battery packs, I found out, not only are they underneath the hood, but there's actually some in the transmission tunnel. The
Hmm.
builders had to widen and modify the transmission tunnel. Remember, there's no drive shaft running through this. There's no
Yeah.
transmission, but they're using that space. There is a particular battery from like a Chevy, some sort of Chevy. They mentioned it in the article. But you see what they're doing though. Not only are they putting one manufacturer's drive in a certain manufacturer's chassis, now they're using a third manufacturer's battery supply, and it just goes. I didn't.
If you say
EV is
Frankenstein,
so
I'm gonna
new.
I'm not gonna
Yes,
talk to you for about the next day.
EV is, yeah. Speaking of that, yeah, EV is so new, but to see how they are able to interchange battery packs already
Juice
with.
is juice.
Well,
So
yeah, but I mean, I could have swore I've seen, and I just don't know as much as into EV yet. Which there are certain voltage systems. You have a 48-volt system, or you have it could be even higher than that. There's certain systems. So it was interesting for me to see just how interchangeable these things are. Um, the build looks
EV.
amazing. You're right.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like the fact that they did one side exposed wheel,
Yeah.
polished up alloy.
Yeah.
And then of course you take the other side and then, you throw like carbon fiber fins on it that are active, or potentially active. It's just a cool layout.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot of cars like doing that. Of course, any carbon fibered out S30, I'm always going to be like,
Yeah.
well, it's pretty slick. But
I got two things for you, man. First one is I had to ask myself, why is an EV at a CSF radiator company booth? It's not. Go ahead. You go ahead. Yeah.
you go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Oh well. So.
Nerd, because we're gonna nerd out here right now. I already know. Yeah, I see what you did. You slapped me with a glove, and you're trying to challenge me.
Ah. Well, it appears that CSF is getting into EV motor cooling or the battery cooling systems. So yeah, you need cooling systems in EVs to
Mhm.
keep batteries cool. Potentially the
Correct.
motor drives cool. I don't know. What do you have? Did you have something else?
Same thing. Yeah, I think we kind of were talking about the same thing, and we're not. There's not gonna be a fight here. We're civil. But
Now,
yeah, CSF is actually I'll recognize it. They're a radiator leader in the industry right now for aftermarket,
yeah,
and they just want to be recognized for that. And then, of course, for these EV models, surprisingly, we haven't got to the solid state era where we're needing little to no cooling capacity. It's
yeah,
still a thing that's needed for these cars, and EVs are no different. They have to have cooling capacities,
yeah.
and CSF is looking to display this vehicle,
Mhm.
and the vehicle needs cooling, and they are the company to support that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Now, one last thing, Miles. Pardon my youth. Tell me about Wraith. What is Wraith? I'm
The
sorry, dude.
Wraith, the movie The Wraith.
Dude,
Yeah, we just are
pardon.
no longer co-hosts. You were out.
Do you have it on DVD? Can I
Do
borrow it for like a
you
really
do
long
you
time?
know who Charlie Sheen is?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I know Charlie Sheen,
okay. You
Mr.
know what he
Tiger's
does?
Blood.
You know what he
Yeah.
does besides mountains of cocaine and do another podcast as well. And by the way, Charlie Sheen, if you're listening, my apologies. We'll have you on the podcast at any time. But no, he actually made a movie, if you don't know, called The Wraith.
Okay.
And for people of my era, it's an extremely cool sci-fi slash automotive movie. And it has one of the most amazing cars never made. So
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Okay. I'll have to look. I'll have to go to
Jesus
my
Christ.
nearest VHS rental store and
There,
check it
you
out.
can buy it on DVD. I'm pretty sure they even make a Blu-ray. That's how classic this goddamn movie is,
Okay.
and you need to watch it. The Wraith. I can't believe you haven't seen The Wraith.
I'm sorry,
So,
man. That's actually one thing I can't believe we haven't talked about that sooner.
Harold chimed in here. He said, "Just saw The Wraith last week in Peoria. Oh, that car's still making the tours. Yeah, it's a, it. Let me see here. Oh my God." And I'm going to show my age and, of course, show the fact that I've been drinking all night. Daimler Chrysler vehicle? Yeah, let me see here. Oh, Harold said it's on Laserdisc, which I would
Laserdisc.
probably buy Laserdisc
Woo.
just for that. There's only like 3 movies I would buy on
That's a
Laserdisc:
hipster thing, isn't it? Laserdisc. You buy things.
Wraith, Abyss, Event Horizon. That's it. Those are the only 3 movies you need in your life on Laserdisc.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but yeah. Anyway, yeah. Great, amazing car, and yeah. You know what? This isn't the podcast to do a coverage on the Wraith. Anyway, let's talk about your pick for the SEMA show.
Yes.
Now, what did you pick?
So, speaking of Frankenstein cars, again, we're getting into this build. Honestly, this build, I have so many questions, man. I And so because of my curiosity and confusion, this is why I picked it though. And but I can at least respect it for what it is and the amount of time that went into it. And what I'm talking about here is a Nissan 350Z that has two Honda K24 four cylinders turbocharged.
All right.
Uh Now this is two inline four turbocharged cars. One engine is at the front wheels, one is at the rear wheels. Uh, it says it also has two 5-speed Honda Civic manual transmissions with them. So you're going 5-speed on this. Now, it is, what can I say? Now, this is partially sponsored by Ineos Motor Oil, as you see here in the picture. The idea sounds cool. I mean, you've got a front power plant and a rear power plant. They're an old school gasoline engines. Let's get more into it here. Obviously, you see the amount of metal work that was done, the roll cage, the mounts for these engines.
Damn.
Let's see here. Now we
K24
do.
is a pretty awesome power plant, but
It is.
man, to split two and then split two damn transmissions, that's just a lot of
Well,
work. It's
well,
crazy.
this is what confuses me about it, which is okay. So it's manual, and you have a shift. You can't use two shifters. I'm
You
assuming
can't
you have
zip tie them
one
together.
shifter. Yeah. Do you have one shifter that has a special linkage that
Yeah,
that can
obviously, it's going to have a
sync up?
special double linkage.
Yeah. And then I start thinking about engine performance. So if these engines are matching, let's say the engine builder built two identical engines.
Mhm.
I mean, who's to say the power is an equal amounts or matching at
Well,
the
you
same
probably have some type
RPMs?
of governing system that has to split a signal, maybe? I don't know. It's hard for me. I'm just thinking off the top.
I
And then split ratios for power because
Yeah.
it can't be equalized. You
Yeah.
know,
It
both, right? I mean, it
it
is a SEMA build, right? At the end of the day, it's like it's not
Yes.
necessarily anything that's like fully functional and like you're prepping it for perfection. Sometimes it's just like get it done. But
Yeah.
who's to say? I mean, not to take any light away from this because obviously
Of
a lot
course
of work
not.
went into this.
It is a
But yeah,
fabrication.
and see that's the problem with us is we nerd out. So we want to know all those like nerdy little details. But I will say though that for somebody to do a build at this level, I mean, it's definitely
Yeah.
impressive. I like You know what's funny is, and I read a little bit on this particular vehicle, and of course the last vehicle, not to steal any
Yeah.
thunder, but both of these vehicles were like budget purchases. The last vehicle was like a $500 Datsun buy. This vehicle, from what I remember, is like under a grand
An
built.
$800 350Z
$800.
chassis.
I knew there was an amount out
I
there.
do appreciate that, taking something that was essentially scrap at a point
Yeah,
and just giving it new life. I
that's
love
kind
that.
of cool, man.
I love that.
So
Yeah.
I don't know, but
And I will say, so again, aside from the Honda power plant, though, you look at the Z for what it is. Now you are on airbags. It's got air ride technology. You've got these amazing wheels. I want to say they were 12s in the back, or sorry, 13s in the back, and 11s in the
yeah,
front.
that looks like a fat boy.
Um,
Yeah.
I do see. Check out the front bumper though. The front bumper, for those who can see for what it is, you've got 370Z Nismo front end, but it was designed and made for 350Z. Could be a custom job. I want to say I've seen
That's all
some on the
molded
market.
together. Yeah, that's all
Yeah,
molded
it's
together.
custom regardless, though. But you do see the 2015 plus 370Z front end molded into the 350Z
Two
chassis.
engines, double the amount of oil changes. I mean, it's just me. I'm going through like, damn, I got to service this thing. So yeah, I mean, it takes twice the amount of oil. Makes
So
sense.
I'm sorry. Yeah, 12s in the front, 14s and a half
God dang.
wide in the rear. Yeah, I'm just curious to see what it looks like. What do the numbers look like? On a dyno.
I
You
don't
know,
know. But I will say
just
that it's just for them to take something that previously was just non-viable, as it were. Like maybe I'm assuming it was some kind of an insurance vehicle, or maybe just somebody tried to part it out. And, these people took it and put their flair to it and revived it and turned it into a damn SEMA car. That's pretty impressive. And
huh.
you know, I will say the K24 engine platform is impressive in its own right. So for them to do two of them, that's pretty cool. So
Yep. No, I agree, man. So anyway, that's my feature. Again, there were plenty of Nissan and
there's a
Datsun
ton
motorsports.
more, and we're not taking away or discrediting anybody else. This is just two that we were just kind of BSing about over the last few days before we decided to do this podcast. We're like, okay, you pick one, I'll pick one,
Yes.
and those are what we kind of came away with. And you can't pick anything from the Nissan booth. So, again, not to take away anything from the Nissan booth, all amazing cars, but that was a layup. We said you had to work for your lunch and go hunt. So here we were. So, but that's everything again that we wanted to kind of cover in our special segment. Now we did want to give we normally give a shout out to our event section where we kind of go through everything that's happening. Unfortunately, this time of year, as things start ramping down, SEMA is one of those things that it's kind of the pinnacle of the end of the season, as it were, for the most part. But happening abroad, just over the pond, as it were, in Japan, is actually one of the most amazing Nissan festivals that are out there. Now, Mike, you want to talk a little bit about it?
Sure. No problem. Now this is before I say anything. I think were you able to attend this festival when you went to
No, I've never
Japan?
been to the
No.
Nismo Festival. I've been to
Ah.
all. Shut up. I've been to all the other amazing stuff that was part of our Z Crazies tour when I went. One of these days, I'll make it back again. But I did go to Fuji, went to all that other stuff. But unfortunately, due to a scheduling conflict, I wasn't able to actually make a Nismo festival. So
Oh man. Okay. My mistake on that one. So what I am talking about though is the 2023 Nismo Festival. It is set for December 3rd at Fuji Speedway. So we were just under a month away from Fuji Speedway Nismo Festival. Now, this is obviously, as you see here, the fanfare, the dedication, the love for Nissan and Nissan Motorsports, Nismo, is through the roof. I want to say this is essentially the mecca. If anybody has a chance to go to Japan, you, if you can, try to go around the same time as Fuji Speedway and the Nismo Festival. Um, again, happening December 3rd. This is in Shizuoka, Japan. Man, I don't know where to start. So, Miles, yeah, I didn't mean to rub it in there. I have gone to the Nismo Festival. There is so much going on at the same time during this festival that it really is hard to see it all. Not only do you have uh, some of your most memorable and favorite Nismo cars on the track, competing or doing parade laps or having exhibitions. But you have a lot of vintage cars, oftentimes having exhibition races. And it's just amazing to see. Oftentimes, you can go into some of the paddock area and see the owners and talk with people who own these cars. Um, the sponsor booths and vendor booths out at Fuji Speedway during this festival is pretty awesome, and that's probably where you're going to spend a lot of your time because I'm sure you know, Miles. You know, at least from my impression of Japan, is that the types of model cars that you can get is just extraordinary. It's nothing that you've seen here in the U.S. A complete ballpark on its own. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would
Uh,
agree. I came back with way much more than I needed ever to fill my coffers of diecast addiction. Akihabara was even worse to me. Like I went through that place and I dropped a good chunk of change on just picking up um, just weird like Datsun and Nissan manga books, and then of course picking up diecast stuff. But yeah, that was cool in its own sense. But yeah, this is on the list though.
these cars here in the picture that we're showing right now is essentially the Super GT cars that we've been talking about for essentially all year long. You see here the Realize Nissan Mechanic Challenge GTR here in blue. You've got the GT 500 spec Nissan Z behind it. What else do you see here? I want to say that red one there is probably the RC Nissan Leaf, which we also mentioned in this episode. So you're really getting access to see these amazing cars on track, to hear them, to get this the energy from them. Man, it really is an amazing opportunity to see these things. I do see here that you have opportunity to hear with drivers, speak with drivers, hear their feedback, and then you see a lot of the heritage cars. For example, this one here, the Nissan. I believe this is one that we often saw with through IMSA, the GTR. It's not a GTR. The what is it? The R390. Huh?
R390.
Is that the electromotive? What?
No, it's not the. It's not that particular one.
Okay, I'm sorry. But anyway, again, a ton of opportunity. That is actually happening here in just under a month from now. Um, that's the event I have here. I actually have one more, Miles. This is the last one. Our buddy Edgar did say that ours day is this month, and I'm going to go ahead and pop this up here. Check it out here. Registration is open. Ours day is of course a huge GTR gathering. It is held in the streets of Willow Springs Racetrack, Willow Springs, California. It is happening on November 25th, 2023. I believe that is the weekend after Thanksgiving this year. So if you are in the Southern California area, this might be an amazing. This is an amazing opportunity for you to take a look at on-track driving sessions, vendor booths, food vendors, raffles, prizes. Um, Pre-registration is online. There should be a link. We'll put in the show notes for you to see more information about Ours Day 2023. They do say, though, that even though it is November, take a hat, bring sunscreen, protect yourself from the sun, bring a camera by your way, and
Oh
arrive
yeah,
early to beat the crowds.
yeah, it's going to be a good event. And that's and a shout out to everybody that's running everything that's going on with Nissan Challenge. Again, SR20 convention in 1 year, in the same year as our days. I mean, that's pretty next level. And for those guys that have to put this together every year, and then of course deal with all these racers and all their problems and all their excuses. I'm just kidding. You
They're
guys
at
put
SEMA.
together an amazing event, and then of course deal with all the track negotiations that have to happen. I just want to give a shout out to you. I know, Edgar, right now you're probably in the middle of trying to reach into your deep engine bay and you're like, son of a, working on whatever you're working on. I just want you to know I'm sending you good vibes because you guys are doing an amazing job with that event. And just go ahead and keep continuing it on. And we wish that you continue to grow and thrive. So that's it.
Mm, mm. Actually, Edgar just responded. He did say here that a fun project we're working on is trying to get a group of cars over to ZNats next year. That would be
That'd be
amazing,
awesome.
actually,
Yeah.
especially if you convoy. Call us, let us know, keep us in the loop. We might be able to join you once you cross Texas. That would be
You need to
awesome.
do more branding, brother. I mean, like, get it all over all the cars. You know what I mean? I'm like, and by the way, I noticed that there was like some cool stickers that we didn't get over here. I didn't get anything. I saw some cool stickers, some challenge stickers. Just saying, hands are a
Yeah.
little light. I don't see just no. We don't need much to kind of survive. But by the way, I still love the Nissan Challenge shirt that you sent us.
T-shirt, man. Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes. I still
we
wear it.
are slaves for the swag, my friend. So,
Slaves for the swag. Oh man, that's a good one.
but
Slaves.
again, yeah, shout out to those and continue to follow it. And if you're in the neighborhood of the California area, you have no excuses. Get down there. And they're a very inviting group. If you want to start just getting competitive into racing or just having fun, that's where you need to start and start lining up with some of their events or just attending and seeing what it's all about. You'd be surprised how welcoming these group of folks are. So,
Mm,
um,
absolutely, man.
but let's talk a little bit about community. Again, when it comes to community, make sure you're taking care of us. We are the guys just trying to keep this community alive, making sure we're keeping the Nissan beacon kind of going. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to everything we do. Again, our Facebook is in the dirt, dead, because for whatever reason we're in Facebook jail for God knows reasons. But again, you can still check us out at Instagram, and then of course check us out through the YouTube channel. And
Yeah.
we have a little, Mike. You started doing our little bite-sized pieces. Is that right?
Yes, I did. So, what I've been doing here, this has been a project off to the side, is that obviously, like we know, Miles, these episodes, what are we on now? We just passed the 2 hour mark.
This is like episode 13 at least.
Yeah, we understand that not everybody has 2 hours, especially on
God
YouTube,
no.
to see all this. So what we're doing is taking these each segment or perhaps each story and by cutting them up into bite-sized pieces to where you kind of can experience the podcast in about 10-minute increments anyway. It's should be a little bit better for you guys, that way you get the information that you want, see exactly what you're see hopefully exactly what you're interested in. So we'll be doing that more, and in the coming weeks I'll be doing that with past episodes, specifically our old interviews. We want to have those interviews available for you guys to see more about things that interest you. So we'll be doing that again. YouTube channel, please subscribe, hit the notification on that. You'll be glad you did. And then, of course, through Instagram is probably where you'll see most of our personal interactions until we get face back online. But we're not holding our breath on that one just yet, though.
So again, thank you for everybody for coming out. Of course, again, info at nissannerd.com. If you have something that you need to send to us, an event, a personal interest story, or maybe you have a business that
Yes.
you want to kind of share with us. Again, we don't charge anything for any of this stuff at this time. But again, for right now, you just let us know if there's something that you want to kind of hear or you want us to put it out there within the community. That's what we're here for. We are a
Yeah.
community sounding board, all underneath the brand of Datsun, Nissan, and Infinity. That's what we are trying to do, and of course, be that campfire, if you will,
Mhm.
for our community. So again, you can send us anything that you want us to see at info at nissannerd.com.
Yep.
Other than that, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for being on with us here tonight. Our next episode will actually be Wednesday the 22nd. For those that
That's right.
don't know, we typically do like a pretty decent Black Friday deal.
Episode.
So we'll
Yeah.
do an episode, and then we just kind of nerd out on all the Black Friday deals that are out there. So if you
Yeah.
are a business owner, or if you are a vendor and you want to talk a little bit about your Black Friday deals, or you want to get that out there to promo that,
Yeah.
send us that at info at
Send it to us.
nissanalert.com. So we need
Yeah.
to know about that.
That's right.
So
So that is a friendly reminder. Thanksgiving is in 2 weeks from today.
save
So
your
we'll be.
pennies and blow it all.
Yeah.
Maybe you buy
Yeah.
that Tyson turkey microwavable dinner, save your pennies, and maybe you're gonna buy that coilover kit that you've been kind of eyeballing for a while. I'm just saying, or that big Akibono brake kit. Do it, son. That's it.
Hmm.
That's what you want to do. So
That's right. That's right. Again, until then, guys. So, Miles, I know we've got some more. Well, you've got garage work. I know I've got garage work.
my
We love to
garage
see
work is
everybody.
your garage work. I got to make sure that I got to get you back on the streets and winning some money for me. So it's weird. It's a Fast and Furious quote.
That's a fast and
Anyway,
furious.
but again, until then, of course, get in your garage, make something cool. I always like you guys better when you're in your garage, just like
Yeah.
Brian. Edgar, he's in there
He's doing it right, man.
he's doing it right now. He's listening
Yeah.
to us live, and he's like scraping his knuckles. I hope he just, cut himself on something. That's what you want to do. That's what we want when we strive for that. So yes, get in your garage, make something cool. Until then, Mike, you want to take us out with a compi?
Let's do it. For those that are still with us, keep whatever you got in your hand. Let's do it. Let's join ourselves, each other, with another kanpai. We're going to go ahead and wrap up the episode, guys. Kanpai, guys. Woo.
Oh my God. It's worse at the bottom.